Welcome back to the home studio, and welcome to episode 85 of the Stevie Richards Show. As if ECW didn't die in part one, we're going to cover the show that killed ECW part two. I think we can do like 10 different parts, 15 different reasons, whatever it might be. It could be December to Dismember all alone that killed ECW. It could be this. It could be the zombie. It couldn't be Stevie Richards because I wasn't even booked on anything I was booked just as much as the person I'm turning it over to right now, my co-host James Romero.
So December to Dismember was desecrating the corpse, I think. I kind of contend that this was the show that absolutely killed it stone dead. The first episode, he was already in the ICU. He was already on death's door.
So you're basically saying they committed wrestling necrophilia with December to Dismember, which the name in itself does not quite roll off the tongue in the beginning.
Yeah, it's like episode 1 of ECW on Sci-Fi, and you'd already booked it an ambulance to the hospice. It was never getting out, but you still had that hope. And like 8 was where it flatlined. And then once again, didn't even have a funeral, just like the corpse of ECW was just bloated and thrown into the sea and then dragged back in for December to Dismember to just like kick and punch.
It was the old Mortal Kombat. Get over here. I'm not done with you yet. They already ripped the spine out and everything.
Yeah, it is the stop, he's already dead. But we so wanted it. We so wanted it to work that we overlooked the zombie. But we're not talking about the zombie today.
It's so funny, too, because I think it, just like anything in wrestling, when you got somebody with so much money, how do they entertain themselves? The people are begging for ECW. They're begging for some semblance, even the roster, even Paul Heyman. We're going to get into all these different elements of this, but it almost feels like Vince and WWE were literally using this show to troll the fans that really wanted to see the original ECW, or even just like 1% to 2% of the original ECW.
Yeah, it's like when Bob Holly got his back cut. It's like, ooh, this is like that was the 1% or 2% of ECW. And that was kind of like
and
the
I
wrong
wish
bit.
It didn't happen because it was very, very scary. Like it's almost like what we talk about, like when something's good, we're just hanging on to it for dear life anymore because and it was like Bob Holly versus Rob with the table. And that was an extreme moment, but the zombie, the priest,
Kelly dancing every week. The only stripper in the world who can't take her clothes off.
Well, there you go.
There's nothing to add, is there?
No.
Paul's Mahoney was playing poker a lot.
I look forward to part 3 of What Killed ECW coming soon.
Oh, dude, this is a rich vein. This is a mine that we could go in so much. It's like you could even do the original ECW run, like how it ended in 2000, like very early 2001, and kind of all the factors that shut that down as well. We should watch like the last ECW pay-per-view, like the real one, and whether that was Living Dangerously or whatever it was, like at the end of 2000.
Was that the one with CW and Dreamer with the I Quit match?
Yeah, with the guardrail on the Death Valley Driver on the guardrail and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I'd stay away from those guardrails if I were him.
Yeah, well, like magnets, baby. Right, we're going to do the intro. So, I've got a channel. You've got a channel. Right. I've got a channel.
Oh, I can't wait for him to have it. You got to work with Korea. That would be amazing.
Dude, you live near him. Why don't you just knock on his door? And just ring his doorbell and go, hey, and then just run off.
Well, because I might actually find out firsthand why Tony was booked. He was booked very often as a wrestler during the shooter days. Just grabbing the forum was enough for me to know. Like, I literally couldn't get away. So yes, there's a little bit of fear and trepidation to knock on his door.
So I've got a channel, James Romero. I'm trying to up my production on that a little bit because we've changed all the days of when we're recording. I've got a bit more free time to do it, so that's made me very, very happy, so I'm doing a bit more there. Stevie, of course, has got the Stevie Richards fitness channel where he's doing more documentaries, more in-depth stuff, which is going over gangbusters with the viewers, and there's also the Stevie Richards cameo, which I nearly forgot about because I haven't written that down in my notes. But Stevie Richards cameo, once again, is one of the most popular people on all of Cameo, and the reason is he gets 5 stars across the board. He's way too reasonably priced, and he gives you way too much for your money as well. It isn't just a Ric Flair drunk in a pizza joint putting you over for $1,000 kind of thing. This is far more valuable stuff for a far more reasonable price, and that's why Stevie is. So you didn't do any more this morning, did you?
No, yesterday I had one, and I was just thinking about after you told me the traumatic news of Mercedes Monet's AI texting service for $100 a month. I was starting to be convinced I might be underpricing the cameos.
I think so, absolutely. And of course, how can we forget the Stevie Richards Show Patreon, which we do watch-alongs every single week. Last Monday, it would have been this Monday, I'm sorry, just gone, is the Gimmick Battle Royal from WrestleMania 17. Next Monday is going to be almost a Gimmick Battle Royal from 2007 on Raw, the 15th anniversary show, unless that was the first of... Why was that 15th anniversary? Because
Why?
Raw started in 93. How could it be 2007? But it was 2007, wasn't it?
Creative liberty, pal.
Well, I guess so.
Calendar liberty, pal.
I'm gonna have to Google that. Jim
Well, while
Neidhart.
you're doing that, I just wanted to tell everybody we do the Patreon pre-show, so Patreon members will be able to see the full conversation. But we actually started talking about the possibility, this will be the third time, but I believe the most successful version of the Smartboard channel. We talked about how the audio podcast audience with those Smartboard segments are kind of feeling disconnected because it's more of a visual segment or segments as we do it. So we are considering the possibility of having what went wrong, what went right, even botch watches and other types of historical moments and spots and moves and everything like that onto a separate channel. And the funny part is James O'Mara is the Vince McMahon of podcasting and YouTube channels, because I brought this idea up 6 months ago multiple times. No. Then when we went to Patreon this morning for the episode 85 pre-show, he's like, you know what, Stevie, you know what would be a great idea? And I was like, here it comes. Is this a rib? He did the Vince 1-for-1. I got a great idea. This is the Stevie Night Heat. Two weeks after they shut it down, and Stephanie came up to me and goes, you know what, Steve, we had an idea for you to be the GM of Stevie Night Heat. And I, just like with James, I went, oh, that's a great idea. I've never heard that before.
Do you know what's changed? Is apart from the, like, we've rejigged things around, so we've got a bit more time. But two, we've got so much in these full episodes constantly that I kind of think we're like tacking on the what went wrong stuff, but also it doesn't translate to the audio version of the podcast. So, and the audio version of the podcast, the views are going up as well that I've checked this last month. We've had a noticeable bump in downloads for them, which is also really good. So I thought, because they're kind of like audio unfriendly, and we've got so much coming out on the full shows anyway, and also I don't need to be in them, so you might as well have a solo thing going on.
I like having you in them. I like having you in them, but I do
you're in the
understand
minority.
some.
You are in the minority, you know.
Yeah, I usually am with the things I think about and the things I do here. But let's go to show and tell time before we go to the episode, because I'm very excited about this, very nervous, and learning from scratch. Honeycomb Aeronautical really wants us to do a gaming stream, some gaming episode stuff. We're going to go dive deeper into my flight sim, racing sim type stuff. But they sent a lot of things out to me. This is a throttle quadrant right here. And we got the flight yoke right here, the alpha flight control. We got, I'm going to keep going here. Then we got the Foxtrot one. We also have, this is really cool, an actual Xbox style controller that simulates all the stuff I just showed you. And we also have rudder pedals. Where do we put it? I don't know. With the 2 desks, smart board, production stuff and everything, we might have to upgrade to a 3.2 with this. My wife is gone, so she didn't hear me say that. But very excited to learn something new. I always am, even at 54 years old. And the flight sim. And people have already emailed me based on the Patreon thing. What do you think the first flight they want me to simulate?
You said this last week, and I can't remember what you said.
The plane ride from hell.
Did it all just happen at once?
Did it happen all at once? No, but there was the delay. I don't even remember, honestly. Like Dreamer had talked about it before on that Dark Side of the Ring episode, but I didn't know the delay had lasted that long. We were on the tarmac. I guess they ran out of alcohol, right? And then they had to get more, and it was already like the future was already predictable at that point. But I didn't know we were on the tarmac for like hours before we left. Maybe because I was just playing video games, watching movies, and just trying to pass the time, which they were too in a completely different way. So
Yeah, how many hours were you on the
I
tarmac?
suppose it was multiple hours. I don't remember being, and I'm a person like when it's delayed, especially if I'm on the plane on the tarmac and it's just, come on, let's go. I get very claustrophobic in that way. So I was like, let's just get out of here. I don't understand. So maybe I just compartmentalized my frustration with that. But yeah, it wasn't like, wait, who's singing? Wait, who's going against Thor? Wait, where's the ponytail? Whoa, wait a minute, there's a robe. It didn't all happen within 5 minutes, but it was a good, steady, like turning around, like, oh, now this, now that. And then we landed and it all continued from there.
So, from one disaster to another, we have to go to ECW. How do you even term it? ECW on Sci-Fi Episode 8, Hammerstein Ballroom. I think it was August 1st. I didn't write the date down. Of course.
The Ocho. It should have been on the Ocho.
As Jericho would attest to, I'm sure. We have to pick up where we left off. We only did half the episode because there was so much to talk about in the first episode. And now we get into the second half of the show. But before we get to the main event, we have to talk about Kurt Angle. This wasn't his debut, but this is Brooklyn Brawler coming out and saying, hey, I'm too hardcore for Raw, I'm too hardcore for SmackDown. And he says he's going to be the new ECW champion, and the fans cheer. And then his opponent ends up being...
They sure did.
And then Kurt Angle turns up. Tell us what happened in the entire segment, which is mostly that, actually. But
was this the headbutting era? To open every match? Don't
opened
look
up
up,
Brawler, probably.
Don't look up. I just find it amazing that the Brooklyn Brawler said he was going to be the champion, and people in the crowd thought that would be a great booking decision, which, comparatively speaking, we're getting, what, Big Show Batista is the main event for the title? Okay, so a lateral move at the least with that. But no, this is where Kurt he had the mouth guard, he wanted to be real as opposed to everything else. That was kind of the presentation of having the mouthpiece and the wrestling style, the headbutt to open up most every match, which I was like, man, I always wanted to work Kurt, but let's see, it's a bold strategy, Con. Let's see how this plays out, because I don't want to get headbutted for real to open a match, not even to finish it. I'd have to say this, Brooklyn Brawler, this isn't a testament to Steve, has always been somehow a nostalgic, perennial favorite as time has gone on post-retirement. Like Steve became more popular and more of that underdog after he stopped doing anything full-time. You talked about the Shawn Michaels match that they had to deliver on because he won the match at the Garden the previous show, and I have no doubt they had a really good match, and the people were probably pulling for Brawler.
20 minutes it went, I think. Something ridiculous like that. It went forever.
Steve gets a bad rap, obviously, for the backstage and being with the Harvey as stooges or whatever, anything like that. But how many years did Steve work before even this show? It had to be in the 3 to 4 decade range at this point that he was involved with the business.
He was involved with WWE from like 83 or 84 or something like that.
Yeah, but he worked before that even.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't he? Yeah, so he could have started, what, in the 70s?
I'm not sure the 70s, but
you remember he was just a white meat baby face with no beard, clean shaven. He had the Mike Sharp type body, like that old Bruno type wrestler body all the time. But yeah, he was a perennially booked wrestler no matter what, especially in the WWF.
I think he broke in Portland, of all places, would you
really
believe? Yeah, the first match I've got here is him being beaten by Kurt Hennig.
Oh, wow. In Portland?
Yeah. It's funny, a lot of people had runs in Portland that you wouldn't think of. Dynamite Kid did. Brutus Beefcake did. Quite a few people that you wouldn't... Kurt Hennig did, obviously. Quite a few people went to Portland in the 80s, here and there and everywhere, and had really good runs.
I can understand Dynamite Kid because Stampede Wrestling's on that area of the country where you'd make the trip down. Maybe even touring house shows from Canada to Washington or Oregon, Washington, all around there. But yeah, that's a surprise to me that he started there. Has Steve ever, outside of the Brooklyn Brawler gimmick, has he ever gotten a sustainable push as a character or anything outside of that?
No.
You had Abe Knuckleball Schwartz too, which was basically, just to play off the baseball strike, I believe.
At the time,
the
yeah.
campaign.
And there was Doink for a bit, but no, that's pretty much it. He was just Steve Lombardi and...
Kimchi too.
Oh, of course he was Kimchi. Has he been anyone else? That's 4.
I can't, but that's a lot for WWE to have him around for that long. And then, of course, Steve and Harvey kind of were a team post-retirement and post his managing career doing some stuff on camera. Then, of course, his ECW run that we're about to talk about.
I'm trying to look what else he was. Oh, he was also the Black Knight once. I guess with Jerry
Black
Lawler.
Knight Satellite?
Not the Black Knight Satellite, the Survivor Series 93 team of, I guess, it was meant to be Jerry Lawler, but then he had some legal troubles.
Oh, the Knights, I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. You know what, that popped up into my mind? Remember Terry Gordy played like the executioner type gimmick?
And he kept giving a thumbs up all the time, and I just thought he was like really positive. You know what I mean?
I'm positive I'm going to put you in the guillotine. Did he leave out this? Do you think Gordy just didn't remember the thumbs up, the thumbs down?
Yeah, he wasn't in his best frame of mind at that point. But yeah, he just kept giving the thumbs up constantly, and then it was, and then I think it was like the Asiatic spike that was meant to signify. Which, in fairness, Don Morocco did way better.
But well, in fairness, the spike is this. Not...
No, he was hitchhiking. He was a Paul McCartney fan. I don't know.
Spike of positivity.
He didn't last long. Right, let's go on to Kurt. Is this the best version of Kurt Angle? What is the best version of Kurt Angle for you?
Oh, I think they're all really great versions. I mean, from a nostalgic sense, when he turned heel from the, basically the super positive, it's a lot like Rocky. Rocky was the super positive, white meat babyface, Rocky Maivia. Fans started to turn on him and they just went with it. With Kurt, it was almost like very toxic, like positivity type guy, and then he went into the 4 eyes, I think, or 3 eyes.
3 eyes.
I think he added a 4 somewhere in there. So for team, there's an eye in team. So, man, that's a tough thing. And just selfishly, the version of Kurt Angle I really liked and I really thought presented the most sports-based entertainment that you could have was the TNA version of Kurt Angle. Because of him and Joe, with that, you talk about a match like that I don't think you ever replicated a big fight, legitimate feel between 2 guys that you were like, who is going to win this match? With 2 legitimate, tough guys. I think that, and what they did for Kurt and reinvented him, and obviously going from WWE, we're going to get to that, why he went to TNA. I just felt like Kurt had that chip on his shoulder once again, and he wanted to perform. And that actually, in the end, kind of worked against him because he was taking bumps. You were all telling him, don't take those bumps, Kurt. He was almost really beating his body up to a point where the chip was kind of hurting him, literally.
The main event mafia kind of era, and you look at like guys like Kevin Nash, who was mostly, he was 1 foot out the business kind of thing, retiring, not wrestling very much. Sting didn't have the same aura, although he did really well in TNA. He didn't have the same aura as in WCW. Scott Steiner, the same thing. Booker T always had one eye on going back to WWE. Kurt didn't have that. He really built on his legacy in TNA. He was like the only guy who was like absolutely determined in that main event ex-WWE, WCW, like main event group that felt like his best stuff wasn't completely behind him. And I think he has said in interviews as well, it's like the only regret that he has about being in TNA is that far fewer people watched, quite frankly, some of his best years, even when he was, and I know like at his behest, we don't refer to the former name of that era. Was it Peak Angle? I think he'd prefer now. But he thinks his best stuff was in TNA, and he still was doing the goofy stuff as well, like with the Thanksgiving skits where it ended up in a food fight. and he was still great at them. Like, he still had the sense of humor as and when he needed, but he, like, was he just... I think he dialed in the legitimacy. Helped when he shaved his head.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that was a Vince call because he was already losing his hair, and they had that match, obviously, the rib on Edge, telling Edge he was going to have to shave his head instead of Kurt. Here's what I would say, just watching it back then and now trying to interpret it now in 2026. When you have these people coming in, and we're talking about just about everybody, the Hogans, the Bischoffs, and then you talked about the main event mafia thing, it felt like you said, the impression in the locker room, at least with most of the people that I interacted with, was they're just here for a stop, make some easy money, work Dixie over since she's a money mark, and then go back to Vince and kind of save a little bit of their career to go back and finish off with WWE. Kurt had the exact opposite effect. When you looked at Kurt, you said, I need to step up my game. I need to work harder. I need to raise the bar because Kurt is taking this super seriously. Like, that does spread throughout the locker room when people start to not care. And then you notice somebody that is caring. And when you're in the ring with them, it's not a night off in a way of you're not getting hurt. It's a night off like Kurt's not trying to hurt you, but you better show up in great shape, great condition, willing to pull your end with intensity. And you're going to be in the closest thing to what people interpret as a real fight with Kurt Angle, which is what you want. So Kurt was incredibly inspirational to me personally, watching him want to do so many things. And I bet a lot of other younger wrestlers were like, if you had a choice to work any of the guys that were in that tier, Kurt would be number one. And Mick Foley, when Mick worked, we worked Mick a couple times. Mick would go all out. He dropped the elbow off the stage, threw the table onto me, and took about 95% of the bump on the floor. But there were guys that would be incredibly motivated to do that stuff. And then you would have the ones that were just standing on business saying, I'm just trying to eventually finish off at my home, as they would say.
Kurt Angle, I guess health-wise, shouldn't have been wrestling at this point because he was on the cusp of dying, essentially, due to his own severe issues, with injuries and then, self-medication and stuff. And then 2 weeks later, he goes out of his WWE deal. We'll get back to the match in a minute. We'll talk about this now. And then, 2 weeks after this, he tells Vince McMahon that he was going to die if he stays there. And he basically gets a blanket release. Once again, I'm sure...
Weren't they supposed to give him time off, and they weren't going to give him the time off that he had asked for?
I don't know.
Am I off pace with that?
I'll defer to you for that one.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that happened in one conversation, but I believe Kurt was looking for some time off, and then it got to a point where that meeting did happen. That's just my educated guess as well as hearing it, but I've never heard it from Kurt. I'm sure he's discussed it on his podcast. So if you want to look that up, you can look that up.
Yeah. He's talked about it, very openly afterwards. But at the time, did anyone suspect that Kurt was suffering as badly as he was?
If you see Kurt, like that one time I told you he was in Gorilla before we went out there for the tag match, and he was just catatonic, kind of in a trance, maybe just trying to psych himself up inside. And then when he psyched himself outside, that's when I turned to Raven and said, we're effing dead. Because he's ready. But, any wrestler backstage in the locker room is going to show some level of, I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, you really got to, everybody's fighting something. But I don't think anybody was fighting everything Kurt was fighting all at once. And I admire him for that the fact that he saw, like, critically where his career was heading in WWE. If he didn't go to Vince and say, if this keeps up, I'm going to die, then he still has a lot to prove. Yeah. You know what I compare it to in a way? Remember when Eddie Guerrero was basically released and then had to go to Ring of Honor and had to work everybody and had to, work his way back up and work his confidence back into himself that he could still do this at a high level. Kurt's journey in that regard reminds me a lot of that. Does it to you? They seem to be very similar.
As far as intensity goes, I'd say that Kurt Angle's because it seemed that when he was in ECW, and I think he may have said this on interviews as well, I think a lot of people said the same thing, was that they were seeing it as a demotion. But Kurt Angle seemed to go all out to, I don't know who he was trying to prove it to.
Well, Kurt never phoned it in.
You'll know that, but he seems to get just furious about
because he saw that, furious because a lot of people did see ECW as the motion and they just didn't want to be on there or felt relegated. It's kind of like heat or velocity. That's the way they viewed it. Kurt, I think, looked at it like, I can put this company, this new brand on my back and build it up and be the biggest star in the company, but also bring the company along with me, which is a great attitude. But I'm talking about not the intensity analogy between Eddie and Kurt. I'm talking about the reset of their careers and working their way back up, maybe just even in their own minds, that they could do it. And yeah, it's an absolute sin that Kurt's best work, his best matches, his most intense stuff is now only appreciated with people like us talking about it, then somebody going to YouTube, rather than at the time saying, you got to watch TNA. Kurt Angle is an absolute maniac. He's an animal. And that should be enough for curiosity's sake. But I feel like, too, that all got overshadowed by the Hogan and Bischoff and everything. I think Kurt should have maybe at one point been the guy for a while in TNA on a level where you're making him do the press conferences instead of Hogan and Dixie, where he's involved as the ambassador to crossover casuals into the TNA sphere.
During the brief time he was in the WWE version of ECW, were people scared to wrestle him? Because once again, you just said he headbutted Brooklyn Brawler for real at the beginning. He did it to your buddy Danny Doring, who unfortunately, I guess unfortunately or fortunately, he never wrestled Randy Savage. We know this. But he did have Angle's last match before he left as well. But were people dreading have to wrestle him to wrestle him at this point? Because he seemed to really be laying it in hard.
Well, Danny and I joked for about a month, and not anything about the situation, but it was just like, I can't believe you drove Kurt Angle out of WWE. I can't believe you politic to get him out. I mean, I would just make up stories to Danny that he did whatever, that he bullied Kurt so much that Kurt left the company. And, I can't believe that you hurt Kurt's head with your head when he headbutted you. So selfish. Really is. So, but yeah, I mean, I that was a shock, by the way. That really was a shock because nobody's going around looking and saying, oh, Kurt's really messed up or Kurt's out. Kurt's laid out on the floor in the locker room. I'm telling you right now, outside of Kurt's quiet confidence or quiet, how should I say, the volcano about to erupt, but not quite. That's what I got from it, that he was just such an intense guy. But if you ever went up to Kurt and said hello or anything like that, it was never like 1,000-yard stare, looking over your shoulder, or whatever. He was always a very, I used the term before, please don't beat me up, Kurt. He was always a really sweet guy. And he reminds me a lot of Eddie in that way as well, which still blows my mind that Eddie tried to double leg him backstage, tried to fight him. That's just and Kurt laughing about it when he told the story. He's like, he's double legging. And Kurt's just I can picture Eddie grabbing his legs and Kurt going, like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction.
I think that's pretty much it. Anything to talk about the match itself? It's 1 minute.
Yeah, it established Kurt. Brooklyn Brawler gets a pop for wanting to be champion, so we could have had Brooklyn Brawler as ECW champion not long after that. Yeah, we're just getting into something with Kurt, but like you said, where's this timeline-wise? This is episode 8 before he left. How long was that period?
2 weeks.
Wow. So maybe that could have been why the match was a minute long too. Could have been struggling.
Maybe, but
I mean, you wouldn't have a long match no matter what. But what I'm saying is that maybe there was just something going on that I wasn't aware of.
We are going to move on. The next segment is a short one with Kevin Thorn and Ariel. I think they'd already debuted at this point, but just, one thing that ECW on Sci-Fi did do a lot of was character work, trying to build and introduce new characters through vignettes, which was nice to see. And they really did put the effort in, whether it was Punk, whether it was Kevin Thorn, whether it was the reject Shannon Moore, whether it was Balls Mahoney, whether it was Braden Walker.
Wow.
Man, they really established that one.
Well, we don't need to, we can't speak out of turn because if you haven't watched YouTube, there is a 3-disc special on Braden Walker, the very best of Braden Walker. That time he put his hands on his hips and stuff. I can't, that pops up my feed like once every few months and I can't not watch it. And Chris is a super nice guy. So
No, I've interviewed him. He was great. He's really, really cool dude. He told me about that whole Braden Walker thing. He was like, like that whole knock, knock, I'm going to knock you out, whatever it was. It's like, I kept doing promos and they kept saying, do it again, do something different. That was like take 12. And they went with it.
Of course they did. I don't think if Chris Harris is coming in as Braden Walker, you already got 2 strikes against you. So, Kevin Thorn and Ariel, Shelly Martinez, their vignettes, the vampires, much better than the zombie. Their presentation, the vignettes, and everything they did was a lot better. And I'm very familiar with Kevin Thorn. We had a lot of matches on the new ECW, some of the most physical matches I've ever been involved in. And now in 2026, Kevin is doing very well for himself. We don't text that often now. We were for a little bit, and he's definitely had a post WWE and wrestling career that he's carved out for himself.
Is he doing like real estate or something?
Yeah, real estate. And he uses that. He uses the wrestling stuff in a way that's such a cool way to market. For example, he has a belt. Basically, the champ is home, not the champ is here. And he basically poses with the people that, bought a house if he's a buyer's agent, and basically they pose with the belts. And also he was doing a thing, and I don't know if he's still doing it. He would draw up caricatures of the people that he closed the house for, or he ended up buying as a buyer's agent. So nice little touches there. And he just embraces the wrestling in a way that can convert and make him stand out. Even for a novelty, he knows what he's doing. He wouldn't be in the real estate business at this point, years and years later, if he wasn't good. But he uses the wrestling persona for good marketing to focus on the clients, but also get that little pose with the belt. Here's your caricature picture. I like it. I think he's doing an excellent job.
Yeah, 'cause I actually didn't reach out to him for an interview. I don't know why, and I thought he would have been quite good to do it because he was in OVW for a long time as well. He did quite a few different characters.
That's that battle royal I told you. I think he tore his bicep. Nova told me in a battle. Mary said like so many things can go wrong if you're not, in these little battle royal things. And we talked about it on the watch along. Like who went over in their bicep? And I was like, oh my God, they're all twisting their knees when they're landing. And yeah, he had a bicep injury from just a battle royal, a simple battle royal going over the top, kind of holding on to the rope to protect himself. But dude, I'll go back to it. He was right up there with the most physical guys I've ever wrestled. I'm talking about one of the strongest. You watch the match, there's times where you're like, oh, he looks like you just picked Stevie up. He just picked Stevie up. That's all it was. Hate to refer to myself in the third person. I'm talking if you're watching it. There wasn't much jumping, so like he would definitely do a lot of the. I would just stand there, but his clubbing blows and the R stuff, and the thing that was cool looking back on it was production knew they would do a lot of close ups. So like there's one where I was on the apron with my head through the ropes, and he just laid off. He didn't hurt me, but it was like whoa, that was I don't have to sell that. It was just a boot to the face, and they had a close up of my face, and you just see the boot come in from nowhere. But at the time, I'm like, this isn't fun. But looking back, it's like some of the work I'm most proud of to be able to do that with him.
That's so interesting. You say that the production picked it up. How quickly does production generally pick up if somebody is snug or not? Is it like within one match? Do you have to tell people?
I think after the first match, they knew, oh, if we book this again, just maybe even subconsciously, we don't have to make camera cuts. It's going to be fine. There's no space with any of this stuff. And it is sometimes what I've heard was it was a curtain sellout or a monitor sellout because they knew we were going to go at each other and hit hard in safe places, and sometimes hit hard in places that weren't that safe, but nobody really went to the hospital. It was very much I was already prepped for him anyway. I had a few matches with Bill Goldberg, so I know exactly what to expect. I'd love to see him versus Goldberg. I think Goldberg might be running for his life against Kevin Thorn.
You see, now you say physical, hard hitting, but you're not complaining about it.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not,
are you
because
saying, hey, no, that's good. He wasn't hurting me.
because at that point I wasn't even like getting booked in anything, and that was like my first kind of like dipping my toe into something, like a series of matches, being attacked. And for me and him, we wanted to prove something to the people backstage. You got to remember, Kevin is still, this is kind of a not so slight pivot from the Mordecai character. It's just basically, instead of blonde hair, you got the dark red hair, you got a vampire thing. Him and Shelley had their dynamic going on too. So I think think about it. Kurt Angle, Kevin Thorn, maybe even Big Show, Bobby Lashley. There's a lot of people in that new ECW that had something to prove. It was like a reset of their career. And once again, just like TNA, you're fighting an uphill battle of looking like Heat and Velocity with tapings before the real show, and not that many people are watching it on Sci-Fi. So it was a real struggle that way. That's probably the closest thing, just to end this point, that's probably the closest thing to what you would feel like the real ECW was all about. We're fighting as underdogs, the island of misfit toys, and we're going to show everybody and make them see.
Why do you think WWE never gave Kevin Thorne much of a chance, really? Because, as you say, he was strong, he had the size. At no point have you said that he was bad to work. He could do character stuff as well. I mean, he had, some distinct characters that he invested himself in very, very deeply. Friends with that Mordecai thing is very odd. I'll get to the Mordecai thing of what I think is the truth about that and why it kind of fell apart so quickly. But why do you think WWE just never gave him much of a chance, really? Because kind of everything that you'd think they'd like.
I really have no idea. Maybe it's just a personality conflict. Maybe Kevin, in a way, I've been there. You don't sync up with one of the writers or the agents or the office people. And even if you're friends with Undertaker and he was friends with Arn Anderson to a certain point, I don't know. That's one of those things where maybe somebody went up, and this is what happens in wrestling a lot. Somebody says, man, this Kevin Thorne guy, he's a big, strong guy. He can work. His stuff is snug, but it doesn't injure anybody, but it's there and it's physical. And this is like the strong style we're looking for. And he can still bump, and he has facials. He's got a character. It's something like the new modern version of Gangrel in a way, if you want to present it that way. And then somebody go, yeah, but no. Why not? I just don't know. It just doesn't have it, like you don't have a real reason for it, but it's just sometimes the way the God complex works on the creative side of wrestling.
Funny that Gangrel was actually going to be part of that group.
Yeah. That dude, you want to talk about a guy that they've put the Geico fishing line out to, and it just never, and anybody that deserves to have even a spot now in his late 50s maybe, and still looks and works the same, that's an even bigger sin than Kevin Thorne, the Gangrel thing.
Oh, dude, I think he's been in AEW 2 or 3 times. And this last time, he was meant to be part of it for a longer time with Adam Copeland, Edge. But that was the match that Edge got injured in when he jumped off the cage. So they just got rid of Gangrel.
Yeah, but before that, they did a thing where he was supposed to appear on something, and then they pulled him from AEW because they had it on WWE.
That's nuts. And then he was like there once for like I don't know if it was like one of the stadium stampedes or whatnot, and he turned up and then went again. Let's get to the Mordecai thing then. Did you think the Mordecai character had legs? Because the way I guess it was presented, or it came off on TV, and I would have to look at my own notes of this because I read about it, and I wrote about it, it was meant to be the inverse of The Undertaker. He even dyed his eyebrows, did the whole thing about it, and then apparently it was never meant to be the inverse of The Undertaker, and somehow that played against him. And it just so happened that they wanted someone to face The Undertaker eventually, but then Mordecai, or Kevin Thorne, Kevin Furtick, I think is his real name, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he leaned into the opposite of The Undertaker thing, and that's not what they wanted, so they basically got rid of him. really quickly. The only thing that he blamed himself, and he said rightly so, is that his wind wasn't very good. He was doing so many tag matches with Tyson Tomko that he hadn't done a singles match in so long, so he got tired really quickly. And then apparently he also had a fight in a bar where someone tried to attack him and he broke his nose, and WWE got sued. And then soon afterwards, he ends up back in OVW.
Yeah, I remember him talking about that bar fight in a shoot interview. But
was it Renee and Maven that it was with? Am I misremembering?
He might have been with them. I don't know. I don't know about that particular part. But what I do know is my eyes, when looking at Mordecai and being friends with The Undertaker, you put one and one together, I guess they don't add up to two in the Office's mind, because he is the absolute inverse. The dead man wears all black. The dead man has black hair. Here comes a guy also with a symbol that he comes out with the same exact motion, the same exact mannerisms, but only Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, the light versus the dark. Shawn's basically wearing almost a Mordecai gimmick when he comes out to that WrestleMania match.
Mm-hmm.
So no, they absolutely, I'm not buying that the initial pitch had nothing to do with fighting The Undertaker. And obviously Kevin wasn't going to go over. He was going to get heat on Taker. Taker goes over. But you know what? One long-term storyline with Undertaker where you come out on the short end can still make you an upper mid to main event guy up in that echelon. So I think that they were just looking and saying, they did the inverse of The Undertaker before with the fake Undertaker, Brian Lee, at SummerSlam. Leslie Nielsen was awesome in that, by the way. So, but maybe they look back at that finally and go, oh, because that was a dud at the end, the fake Undertaker versus Undertaker. So maybe, and also a clash of similar styles. Maybe it would have been just a very plotting type match. But they can never admit that, like, yeah, we looked at it that way and then we pivoted. No, we never meant for it to be. He just looks exactly like an Undertaker with all white and blonde hair. But other than that, he's nothing like The Undertaker.
Anything to mention about Ariel, Shelly Martinez?
Oh, he's got along fine with her. I heard they didn't get along during that time. That's the word I heard, that they didn't. And nothing's worse, trust me. Nothing's worse than being in an act with somebody where the chemistry on screen, the thing, it's just like magic. Like it's a natural fit for those two, and to not enjoy the process at all. That's just what I heard, that they didn't get along too well at all. But she's also one that got in Batista's face that one time in Baltimore, Maryland, and that could have, or probably did, completely destroy her career. Is that the timing of that?
Pretty much, yeah. Apparently, She also had a go at Shawn Michaels. So she wasn't picking the right people to have an argument with in that.
Now, Shelly, here's a little advice for you. If I could have gotten to you first, I look enough like them. Just get it out of your system and make pretend I'm Shawn and keep your job.
Yeah, if you could do it in that week where you're wearing like the blazer and like the brown shirt and everything, when Triple H and Batista pulls you out the car.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I remember my friend beat me up much worse than my enemy.
Dude, he was humping your head.
That's you understand it, but nobody understands. Back then, I was probably mocked so much for my overthinking and saying, Shawn wore this outfit. And when they showed it, Social Chris showed that, I was like, man, I'm pretty proud of myself. I got pretty close to the commissioner look.
Right. We've staved off the main event of this show. Not our show, but the show, ECW on Sci-Fi Episode 8 show. The main event is Batista versus Big Show. An absolute catastrophe of a main event, so it was, because if you ever thought that WWE Creative ever had its finger on the pulse, they genuinely thought that this match would be warmly received by the ECW faithful, who, if nothing else, what's the epitome of WWE over the decades since the 80s, or even longer? Slow-moving giants lumbering around and bodybuilders. That is what ECW was not, because it was supposed to be everything that wasn't WWF. And then they present them this. Is it hard enough to overstate how bad... Okay, one, how bad of a decision it was, but also how little Vince McMahon actually knows the ECW audience or Bruce Pritchard or whoever else.
This year, this entire show, in a way, but especially this match, just proved to me that they were trolling the fans, that they were telling them exactly what they weren't going to give them. Or maybe they'll give you a little bit here. And like I said, you know, Bob goes through the table and cuts his back. It's like, ECW is back, baby. No, it's not. That was not meant to happen. And I wouldn't want, if we can go back in time, I wouldn't want that moment for Bob nor Rob. But this moment, yeah, I wouldn't want this moment for the ECW fans as well. This feels like a rib on the fans. It feels like a rib on the ECW guys that really wanted this promotion to be something, at least something like the old ECW. You couldn't have everything, obviously, but it felt like it was also a rib on Batista and the Big Show and everybody that saw it as a demotion. In other words, they're like, hey, wouldn't it be funny to put Batista and Big Show in Hammerstein Ballroom? That's where it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be funny to put them in there and make it a world title match? Oh, the fans will love that. Made it memorable, that's for sure.
Hey, it was memorable, and boy, was it long. But I don't even give him that much credit. I just think that they genuinely thought, because like I think Bruce Pritchard's in an interview somewhere, some talking head thing, where he says, hey, it's a great match. Hey, you know, the fans will love this. They genuinely thought like the fans would like this. And it just goes to show that they just so out of touch. Even 20 years ago, they were completely out of touch with what fans wanted.
And guess you had a guy in the building that could tell you what the ECW fans wanted. You got many guys, but one guy in particular, Paul Heyman. Why do you just let Paul Heyman book ECW? Then you use the quote filter of Vince McMahon to say, nah, too far, too much, a little bit here, but not literally. Paulie should have, and I'm saying this as somebody that would have never. So I think WWE somehow has our recording feed here because they shut off my camera. It's overheat. I get so much heat, especially with Paul Heyman. That's what we're going to get to, that my camera shut off. But the point I was going to make was, if this person was in charge of booking, I would not sniff 2 milliseconds of ECW TV, and I would still say it was best to have Paul in complete creative control of ECW with a slight filter to take out the stuff that the sponsors would probably leave for and stuff like that. I'd rather you have Paul go way out here, cast that wide net, and kind of be tightened up a little bit. But we can say, without a shadow of a doubt, that Paul Heyman had nothing to do with the booking of this show, especially the main event. And Paul had managed the Big Show as champion, correct?
Yeah, so that was like the big story, but that was because Rob Van Dam was suspended.
Yeah, but they made Paul stand out there in the crowd as the manager of Big Show and have all this secondhand embarrassment of watching his baby. Do you see what I mean? I might be speculating, but think about this. No, Paul, you be out there at Big Show and just watch your entire passion project that you put your life into just die a not so slow death.
So Stephanie McMahon was the lead writer for ECW, wasn't she? Did she wear her backwards leather cap?
Dude, I'm telling you, I didn't know that till this point, but I don't doubt it.
I think that Heyman had to run everything through her, I think, at this point.
Well, with her immense amount of experience, you know, in the real world and the Everman and watching ECW.
Do you know what's so frustrating is like Shane McMahon was still there and he loved ECW. He wanted to do it on live streaming before there was barely any live streaming at that point.
Yeah, but Shane was supposed to be directly involved more. Remember, I told you initially what it was supposed to be. Tommy and Shane was supposed to help run it. Shane and Tommy. Even Rob with the ideas that he had, the agents that were supposed to come in were supposed to be former ECW people, and then they were going to try to do dedicated TV tapings or live TVs, like you said, live streaming our own set of house shows, and that's kind of the way it started. But like that was one of the things in the show notes that Paul wanted everything separate with a unique feel, a unique look, and then it just turned into Sunday Night Heat or Velocity.
Let's get to the match itself. Batista. He's walking to the ring. pretty much loses his rag straight away with the fan at ringside. He's the babyface. And this feels like, like how, I guess, comparatively pro wrestling in the 2000s was, sanitized for your protection, that kind of thing. And this feels like the very first time Batista has been thrown to the wolves, in a sense, and he cannot handle it at all. Once again, he's the babyface. He was told by people in the back beforehand, they will probably boo you. Why they thought the Batista would be booed, but yet thought this would be a great main event, I don't know. Those two facts kind of don't coincide, don't work hand in hand.
Let me say this, though. This same company that had Batista versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30 and blocked out Daniel Bryan before they finally almost rioted with the Yes Movement to have that happen. They were going to have Batista versus the most tone-deaf main event probably in a long time, with Daniel Bryan being blocked out of that. And I think that was when he got eliminated early in the Rumble. They just booed everybody from that point on. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I remember that. Goodness me, do I remember that. And then The Rock, is it the same one where The Rock's there with Roman Reigns?
No, Roman won that one. Roman won that one. That was a different
I'm saying
one.
the Rock turned up at the end to endorse Roman Reigns.
That was another one. That was in Philly, too.
Oh, my God. Why did they keep going back to Philly?
They turned them, though, because now they can run any show they want. People don't chant ECW. People don't boo anymore. They're just a regular TKO crowd.
Okay, right, two things. Is Batista overly sensitive? Or two, should they just not have had... Because, man, that walkway to the ring was so tight. And I know that ECW had some, tight walkways, but this one, it's like you couldn't go anywhere without being smacked by the fans either way. This is just kind of like a bit like poor logistics by WWE, in a sense, to force people to basically deal with people patting you constantly. And also, I've also got to mention this. Big Show was really furious with one fan in particular as well, kept yelling at him and kept yelling back. Everyone had lost their cool in this.
Yeah, it was definitely something. And by the way, when you do that, you never win against the fans, right? They're just they see that you're selling. And for people that were so good at not selling backstage, they were not all that great. And that's the thing with the entryway. That's what I really liked about ECW. And this is me being a heel. It's still like you're in a sea of people. It reminded me of the old WWF, as a matter of fact, when Hogan used to come out in the sea of people. But the Hammerstein Ballroom, they may not be as greedy as TKO is now. We'll get to that story later. But you block off an extra, 3 to 5 feet on each side. The building might look empty. When you block it out like that, they were just trying to get as many people into Hammerstein as possible. So, or maybe here's another thing, quite possibly. They thought that everybody would love it. In the wrestling bubble, with their lack of self-awareness, what do? And they keep going back to that. We just talked about Daniel Bryan. We talked about the Roman Reigns thing. We talked about a multitude of things where they're just like, it'd be cool. Batista versus Big Show. Main event, baby. Hammerstein.
It's in earnest. That's why I think this is in earnest. They thought this would be great. Fans boo Batista. Fans boo Big Show. They don't even know why. Why was even Batista there? Because he wasn't in ECW. They just dumped him in for one match.
Because they figured, obviously, this is just the analogy I can think of right off the bat now. It's like any indie promotion, and I think they really did look at this as a secondary promotion, secondary brand, with people that weren't good enough or people that had to be demoted down to ECW. But if we bring in the big star, remember, famous last words by any indie promoter, let's pay this guy a bunch of money, bring him in, and he'll draw the house. They thought that all the WWE, protected promotion and protected booking of Batista, because they didn't protect Big Show. That's a guy they should have protected from day one to be Andre the Giant. But with Batista, he had nothing but positive kind of reinforcement from the office from day one to this. So, of course, he's going to look and say, they've done everything I wanted them to do as a babyface and a heel character. What could go wrong? Well, the ECW fan base could go wrong. That's what could go wrong.
Well, toilet paper was thrown in the ring, and all the booing starts happening. Joey charitably calls the reaction mixed, very charitably, before Taz just says, dude, it's 100% booze. Same with Big Show, they were all booing him. This kind of had, I mentioned this, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 20. You know that kind of like the crowd has so gotten to you before the bell has even rang that this can be nothing but a complete calamity of a match. And then they put on, we can talk about the match itself, but I mean, are there any other examples like where the people just turn on the match before the bell even rings to this extent?
No, I mean, that example of WrestleMania 20 is probably the closest one I can think of. And then the endings of those two Rumbles where the fans audibly booed, but not so audibly because you said they edited out all the boos out of this.
Yes. Well, on the international broadcast where this was not broadcasting live, they overdubbed the negative chants with a 5-minute long ECW chant.
Just instead. A constant one?
Yeah, and then they had Joey and Taz re-record their lines to not or remove the lines where they referenced the crowd boos and stuff. So they were that desperate to like paper over the glaring cracks of this thing.
But that encapsulates WWE and wrestling in general. Let's not go with it. Let's not listen to the fans. Let's pivot and see. No, let's just ignore everything and chant wash this? Is that a term? Take all the chants out and put our positive chants in.
Is there any crowd that's gotten to you like personally over the years where like a reaction or whatever they were chanting at you completely threw you off your game or actually upset you?
Not that I can think of. I mean, you got to remember, this is like, what are we talking about now? 32 years, 31 years ago, that literally people had a blow up sheep and they were passing it like a beach ball, chanting Steve F. Sheep. So early on, I got, I got all the ego. Wearing Daisy Dukes and a half shirt. My ego kind of got checked pretty quickly. And also starting out as somebody that was kind of a pretty prominent heel in ECW, not having a clue as to what to do. And that was also good too, because if they got to me, I still stuck or created spots after a while that would feed them even more. So in essence, it looked like the crowd was putting me off my game, like making a mistake, slipping, doing whatever. But I was actually doing spots to make them react even more, to think they were in control of getting to me. And then there would be points where them doing that would cost me the match. And then next time I would come out, they would do it even more. Then Paul, I think, saw, well, God, if they're booing him now and they hate him now and they're really into it, imagine if I start putting this kid over, or they win the tag belts, or Stevie gets the pin all the time, as Raven always had me do. It would have if I was insulated like a Batista. It would have. But I wasn't insulated from day one. I was thrown to the wolves from the very beginning of ECW.
It's funny you say the inflatable sheep, because that broke a memory for me. Do you remember for like a couple of years at SummerSlam or wherever, people kept bringing beach balls?
The Cesaro thing and all that,
Exactly the Cesaro thing I was thinking of. I remember the fans like, how dare these people bring a beach ball, blah, blah, blah. Like they were watching La Traviata. It is not high, this is not high art. It's fun. It's more like a music gig. You know what I mean? And like some people getting so butthurt about how dare these people disrespect.
How dare these people interrupt Macbeth?
Nuts. Anyway, right. So let's get.
And Cesaro got over when he tore the beach ball. Remember that? It was all over the place.
Yeah,
he cheered it.
With the match, they go to the ad break. When the fans when they return, the broadcast returns. The fans are chanting "boring." Here's some more chants they had. Change the channel was most famous, but F this match. But same old stuff. Sabu chants. You can't wrestle chants. Both wrestlers couldn't fight through the negativity, of course. Big Show then grabs the microphone to yell at fans about being the champion and about the Sabu chants. And Big Show also tells a fan off microphone to shut the F up. It's the same dude who's like, as you walk into the ring, he was on the corner, like front row, but like right in the corner of the aisleway and the front row as well. And It's some guy in an Orange Franchise T-shirt, I guess, who was also yelling at Big Show during the intro, and then they stall. It's the Larry Zbyszko, two Larry Zbyszkos, and they start stalling and going in and out the ring again. Complete Big Show Goldberg. They lost it.
Well, I think Big Show really got mad. I heard somebody in the crowd had said, Stevie replaced you in No Mercy, and that just set the guy off. It was over after that. I don't know why, and that's the thing, man. I think that's the part where they thought that, we were ribbing the fans, but you literally ribbed yourselves. You did like one of these double reverse Unos on yourself. And I have no doubt that the ECW guys, like the Sabus, whoever's backstage, were laughing their butts off. This is great. That was probably the best episode of the new ECW, like secretly, and a lot of the talent to show them, like, yeah, you thought you could do that? Think again.
You were on the show. Did you actually stay to watch this, or were you gone?
I may have compartmentalized it. Might have been some PTSD. But I'm sure if I was there, I was laughing out loud. I thought it was great. And I have no doubt, because this is the way I am, went up to like Batista and Big Show, because I guarantee you, there's been times where the people hated it, come back, and they're clapping and grilling. I have no doubt if I was there and I saw the match, when they came back, I was clapping, and I'm Sabu right next to me, just clapping. Oh my God, you guys, you have no idea how much those people loved you out there. You have no idea. None.
They eventually start tussling, having a bit of a brawl outside. Then another ad break. Straight after that. And then it's just the most plodding, boring wrestling you've ever seen. I mean, it's almost like, Bruno in the 70s kind of stuff. Big Show gets caught climbing the ropes. I don't think Big Show's ever been bigger at this point as well. He was enormous. He would retire at the end of this year as well for like a couple of years. And I think at some point try and be a boxer. He gets suplexed off the second rope, barely anything happens, and this match was penciled in for like 20 minutes, and then Joey Styles reminds us that this match is not Extreme Rules, despite it being for the ECW title, which is why the match ends in a disqualification with Batista winning in ECW.
Yeah, it sounds great to me. Sounds awesome. Hey, by the way, you might as well just said, for the remaining people that did not turn it off after you said it was not Extreme Rules, that, hey, by the way, this is not for the ECW title. And by the way, this is a 1 hour Iron Man match. To just throw it all in there. And by ending a show at Hammerstein at the 8th episode of ECW with two guys in the ring, one's a champion, when your favorites obviously have had some issues recently and been suspended. Now you put this match on, you have the guy who founded ECW on the outside, correct, as the manager watching all this, and you don't even give him a clean finish at basically the flagship building for the modern ECW, beyond the ECW arena. Did I miss anything?
No, it's pretty. Oh no, this actually had more far-reaching consequences actually for ECW on Sci-Fi. Just at the end, Sabu runs out to attack Big Show to end the show. The crowd reactions, I don't know if you know this, Stevie, put paid to the idea of having the lone WWE ECW pay-per-view after it debuted on Sci-Fi, December to December. That's why it was moved away from New York and ended up, it was originally going to be in Chicago, but it ended up in Augusta, Georgia. The hotbed of hardcore wrestling, Augusta, Georgia, may I say. And also, shortly after this, because of low house show attendance, ECW would soon be absorbed by the SmackDown touring roster, because ECW, for the first few months, did have its own C shows, almost, as far as a touring schedule, completely separate from Raw and SmackDown, if I'm right in saying.
Yeah, those are the shows where I worked Brad Armstrong, Al Snow, Don't Look Up, Danny Doring in Maryland, all that stuff. Yeah, there was house shows leading up to that. But man, I have to tell you this just selfishly for travel reasons. I'd rather go to Augusta, Georgia than New York or Chicago in December. Not ideal, but for travel, it's a lot easier to go south like that. But man, I have to tell you, and that December to Dismember is just so disappointing, ending around 18 minutes early. Renee and I had a really strong dark match that could have really opened up the show. But yeah, it was just whatever it was. And
So
you
I think
eliminated your two favorites in the beginning of that elimination chamber, right? Punk and Rob.
yeah, well, they eliminated Sabu before that because they didn't even let him in.
Yeah, he was in a stretcher.
Right, okay then. So that sort of wraps up the most damaging, if not the second most damaging episode of ECW on Sci-Fi. It depends on whether you think 1 or 8 is worse, but either way, I guess. It was either on death's door or the corpse was being soiled, by that point. Anyway, it was
I don't
pretty
know.
quick.
2 to 7 might be right there, and 9 on after 8.
This is one thing to throw in as well, is the Kurt Angle match that we saw on that was episode 8. He appeared on episode 9 against Sabu. That was his actual last televised match on WWE until 2017, and whenever it was he turned back up. And then he did a few house shows, and then the Danny Doring match to finish it off, and then he left. So yeah, it really was 2 weeks. That was it.
Wow.
Which is still incredible.
Then they brought him back to retire against Baron Corbin.
Jeez. Right. We've got an upcoming Listmania video coming up about that. Bear with me on it. Right, okay. We're going to move on then. So I want to give you some post-show news and whatnot, and here's a few tidbits, then we'll get to sort of the main thing that happened not too long beforehand. Tommy Dreamer was removed from its office/talent relations role. Any reason why that you know, or they just did?
Yeah, I don't know, but I would say just pure speculation that he was supposed to be an office person with the new ECW, which was supposed to be a completely separate brand, talent relations, agents. That was the initial theory about the way this was going to run. I don't know if those two things are connected, but maybe Tommy wanted to be a full-time wrestler again. We talked during the Patreon watch-along that Scotty Tuati was in that gimmick Battle Royal or Legends in 2007, that he was a trainer at the PC, then left that job to go be a full-time independent wrestler again, which you said he's still appearing over there, even in 2026.
Mm-hmm. JBL reduced his working hours with WWE to focus more on his sideline of investment banking and stuff. I mean, it's something that he's been into for many, many years.
Yeah, and he was making a lot of appearances on Fox News too, so he was an analyst. I don't blame him for that.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if he's re-released his financial advice book again as well, or done another version of it, because obviously a lot of things will have changed. I know for JBL, this is a quick tidbit, is when everyone got stock in WWE when they went did you get stock?
No, I did not.
Okay. When people got
stock in ECW.
Yeah. You should have cashed them out quickly, I guess. With JBL got some stock. He was the only guy who sold it immediately. Everyone else held on to it. And the thing is that if he sold it immediately, he made a profit, because that stock halved practically straight away afterwards. Wouldn't go up until 2014 when the network, WWE Network, came out, and I think jumped to $30, and then I think the next major jump was when SmackDown ended up on Fox, and then everything else that's happened with the TKO merger, and I think it's probably still well over $100 a share now. But we'll move on. Chris Jericho is announced for Fox's game show Celebrity Duets, which, if I remember rightly, he was eliminated first. Monty Brown's contract is coming up with TNA, and he signs with WWE, debuts November of 2006 as Marcus Corvon for some reason, and then he leaves less than a year later due to family circumstances. The Ken Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz UFC pay-per-view, I'm mentioning this because Ken Shamrock and wrestling, of course. They're out of this world good for the time period. 775,000 pay-per-view buys at the time. Ric Flair Finance becomes a thing, featuring the Figure 4 process, which we don't know. This little thing I thought was funny. Johnny Fairplay was supposed to be interviewed by John Laurinaitis for a potential role in WWE, but security refused to let him in the building where I guess Raw was being recorded that night, and he never got that interview. What a shame that was. But the biggest news around this time is Booker T versus Batista, the backstage fight. So, happened during a SummerSlam 2006 promo shoot sometime around May, and then obviously those promos start airing around this time, and SummerSlam is right around the corner as well, around this time at ECW Episode 8, which we were talking about in the full body of the show. We don't know much of what happened because neither of them are talking about it too much. I'll get to some tidbits about it that they've released over time, but was this the hot news in WWE at this point?
No, hot news in WWE. I mean, they broke the stories you said in the show notes before the dirt sheets or any news could do that. They wanted their website or their media type things to catch it. I think in passing, people talked about it, but it wasn't like the big, ooh, Batista and Booker T they got into a fight and what's going to happen and nothing like that. No, I got along with both guys, still hopefully get along with both guys, maybe not after I reviewed Batista's match with Big Show, but it just might have been one of those things where, like Booker T said, he wasn't looking for a fight. He wasn't looking to pick a fight. He wasn't trying to be a bully. Made personal issues between the both of them, and Dave's hurt. Maybe he's not in the right frame of mind, so there could have just been that time. Bad, maybe flight delays, travel was hard, personal things. They could have both not eaten up until that point and been hangry. Who knows? But you just get sometimes people are off and feeling off, and then it just kind of becomes a huge misunderstanding. And then it kind of, obviously in wrestling, it becomes sometimes much more than that and becomes physical.
I think reports at the time, and pretty much have been borne out through the years for the little bits that they've released, is that it was a matter of respect or disrespect, essentially. And I think Batista's admitted this, is that Batista was acting a little bit aloof upon his return to the company and not greeting veterans in a respectful manner, I guess is maybe what Booker said. And I think Batista's kind of like half accepted that as well, as that he could have been less of a butthole at that time. But also, he was still injured. He was brought in to, do this recording of the SummerSlam promo, and then somehow Booker and him get into it, or a matter of respect. In 2006, I guess you could juxtapose it with today. Was that just a much bigger deal back then, 20 years ago still?
Oh, the handshake, the greeting, even if you just saw somebody like the day before, yeah, that was a point of contention a lot of times. Like I said, you can get heat for saying hello the absolute wrong way. You can have a rough day, things going on in your personal life, maybe business life outside of wrestling. You come in there and somebody's like, hey, how you doing, man? You shake their hand, like, hey, man, how are you? And they take it very personally. Like, how could you do that? I'm not saying that's what happened with Booker and Batista, but yeah, I hear today that they are so adverse to any of that these days, right? It's the exact opposite.
Really?
People do greet each other, but it's not as stringent as it used to be. I even heard a rumor that Seth Rollins was so sick of shaking everyone's hand every single day of the week. I'm not naming names for anything to call him out, but I had heard that rumor that there's quite a few people from that era, the current one, that are kind of sick and tired of the old greeting everybody every day. Where me, I kind of like the, not a reset, so to say, but just at least saying hello to everybody you work with and your peers and all that stuff. And if you're a local, even if it's not the way to go, I would still introduce yourself to everybody. For example, I talked about it before. If I stepped into a locker room now in 2026, say Wildcat, say go back to Wildcat Sports, I'd go around and shake everybody's hand and introduce myself to the people that might not be familiar with me. People obviously that have known me throughout the years, but I would make it a point to say hello to everybody. And if there's somebody I don't know if they're a worker or not, guess what I'm going to do? Introduce myself and say hello. That's just the way it is. It's their locker room. I'm an outsider. I might have over 30 years of whatever experience in wrestling, but I'm still going into their territory. You just always start off on a better foot that way, being very hyper aware of that, erring on the side of respect.
I figured that if you were doing like 5 dates a week, let's say it's WWF in like 99, 2000, 2001, so they're really like working everybody hard, you must get damn well sick and tired of shaking everybody's hand at everybody, in the arena every single day practically. And then also I heard stories where like some like important discourse could be happening between two people, and they would constantly get interrupted by people running up to shake their hand just because they saw them and they want to be seen shaking your hand every day.
Yeah.
Like, to the point, like, that just sounds, one, total high school crap, something to beat you with a stick over for no good reason, and two, exhausting, and three, shaking so many people's hands. What if one person's got the flu? Then about 50 people has got the flu after
Well,
that.
I'm telling you, though, in wrestling, manners are reversed. They're inverted. If you don't interrupt, you get heat. That's just the way. And if you do interrupt, you get heat. And if you breathe, you get heat. If you stop breathing, you get heat. There's just minefield. Dude, by the time you get to the ring, you're like, thank God I'm just getting beat up in the ring. This is all I've ever wanted, because everything else is such an exhausting process. But I will say this, a moderation or a medium of every, and I'm not, you want to talk about the arena, guess where else you had to do it? In the airport in the morning when you're flying to the next town. And then
What, do you have to go down the line?
arena, sometimes when you get to the arena, after already shaking their hand at the airport, it resets again.
This wasn't how it was like in the old days, surely. Like, I think, like, as far as I can tell from stories I've heard, it got worse until it sort of like must have peaked in the 2000s or something. And then at some point somebody said, I'm not doing this.
It peaked in ECW for me. It actually peaked in the Indies when I started, because that's where I got the ride at, because I was like, I don't want to go over to, say Jeff Jarrett was on an indie show. I don't want to go over to Jeff Jarrett and bother him. Well, now he's mad you didn't go up and shake his hand. I was like, well, he's busy talking to me. Same thing you just said. You have to reverse. This is Bizarro World, the opposite of everything.
Man.
Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show. Do you think, I've got a theory here. Do you remember when Batista went into MMA briefly after he left pro wrestling?
Yeah.
I've got a theory that he did that to sort of toughen up after this. Because the story goes, for the most part, that Booker T got the upper hand in this fight. Once again, Batista would also say, look, I was still injured, and it was a real low, and he says, Booker knew this, and it was a real low move, no matter how, what I was saying, or if I was being a bit disrespectful or being aloof, I think the word he used was, that's no excuse to start a fight against somebody who was injured. That's his point of view on it. And that was a pretty recent interview he said that on as well.
Yeah, I mean, Booker's not a joke. I don't know about Dave, but Dave held himself pretty well in MMA to where he's not a new guy to fighting, apparently, with that MMA thing. Like when he fought the guy, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but it wasn't like he just started training to actually learn how to fight like 4 or 6 months before that. Like I'm saying, he probably scrapped a little bit here and there, but there's something about Booker that Booker does have a very, like I said, a nasty type of presence when it comes to when he gets aggressive. And that shows on wrestling to where he became a big star because his stuff was believable. But you never want to see the guy. It's not what we're about, but I can understand the very awkward type of thing on both sides, that Dave's being aloof, Booker's taking it as disrespect. It escalates, and then Dave's hurt, so it's kind of weird that way. Did they actually squash it, even though Dave still has his viewpoint and Booker has his?
They wrestled at SummerSlam that year.
Well, that's The Office doing something right there. Don't you get that? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Hey, you got a real fight and you got a real fight. Let's have a real fight.
Right, let's move on. Let's get to the news, and there's quite a lot of news that we have to refer to. Quite a few things have happened in these.
You know what's funny is the
days.
Booker T and Batista thing. Yeah. I believe I was asked about this by the usual suspect of Stooges. Like, man, who do you really want? Who do you think we're doing a fight between those two? And I pulled out my 2 political lines that have got me through 10 years of WWE. I think it worked out best for both parties. Everybody's got their thing. That will carry you, young wrestlers, those 2 things.
What if you said, I don't care?
Then you don't care about Batista and Booker T, and now they both want to fight you.
Yeah.
You already knew that. You were already reacting.
No, do you know what? I didn't know what the reaction was. I knew it'd be negative, but I didn't know what their argument would be.
You knew it'd be that's me with both my feet on an individual mine in the minefield, and if I step off of the mine, I explode.
Right, let's get to the news. Brody King. There's a few things that have actually come out of this that's pretty interesting in regards to the reports, the fake reports that came out with it, and now are these fake reports now spurring Tony Khan to book Brody King more, and where does Warner Brothers Discovery fall on this, if they fall anywhere on this as well? But then there's also a CNN article that came out that's now trying to almost weaponize this as an AEW versus WWE thing, which I don't think anyone had really thought of before. But, look, wrestling fans are very hard to be, divisive. You understand that, don't you? Not tribalistic at all. Anyway.
They're some of the most understanding human beings you'll ever meet.
Controversy reigned supreme over the past couple of weeks, really, but it's actually been perpetuated needlessly by Dave Meltzer, of all people, as once again a CNN article.
What was that? What in the world was that?
It's kind of like, well, I don't want to actually spit on my keyboard.
Oh, okay.
It's already broken.
Spit the spittoon in the spittoon.
Ding! Yeah, give it that. So anyway, we'll get to the CNN bit later. Right, so a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite, there was an F-Ice chant that rang out for about 30 seconds on AEW Dynamite. Brody King versus MJF. Now, Brody King has been wearing a Abolish Ice t-shirt on like one show maybe, plus he's worn it in other promotions as well. And the chant broke out in Las Vegas, where Dynamite was a couple of weeks ago. Then Dave Meltzer claimed that Brody was pulled from subsequent AEW Dynamite shows, not because of Tony Khan or AEW, but due to influences above him at Warner Brothers Discovery. So the quote is, "The deal is they didn't want the fans in the arena to be chanting that, if they being Warner Brothers. If Brody came out, there was that risk. When he comes back, it will happen again. I don't know how they're going to handle it. This is, again, not a Tony Khan call. This is from above. You know what it is. Nobody wants to get on Trump's bad side. If it wasn't for that, nobody would care. It's just a chant. But unfortunately, they've got a company they're trying to sell and get regulatory approval from a guy who's going to take that stuff personal. That's just how it is. No Brody King on the show when he absolutely, of course." Now, I need to explain. Last week on Dynamite, as we record this, Brody King and MJF were not on the show, prompting Meltzer to make this up and say that it was definitely an edict from Warner Brothers Discovery, but they only had like a 30-second recap to promote their upcoming Grand Slam title match showdown. So anyway, apparently Brody King wasn't on the show because Tony Khan hadn't booked him on the show. It wasn't a call from Warner Brothers Discovery. Sean Ross Sapp and then others got a quote from Warner Brothers Discovery saying, "Warner Brothers Discovery did not have any involvement in Brody King's upcoming AEW schedule. Any speculation to the contrary is categorically false." And then Meltzer tried to weasel his way out of it by tweeting.
Can I stop you right there and just say, yes, why didn't Meltzer just call WBD, which was what we are going to start doing?
Why didn't he just call Tony Khan? He's best friends with him.
He can't be. No, that's a rumor.
He calls him. He called him once during a show.
I know, but you heard that wrong. That was Tammy Khan.
Is that a convention?
No, it's just somebody named
Tammy
Tammy.
Khan.
Tammy Khan is coming. Tony Khan, he can make an entire convention around Tony Khan. That is an excellent idea. Yeah. I love it. Bucket. No, I'm just saying, isn't that what a journalist does? They call up all the sides, call Tony, but call WBD, call anybody that you can to get quotes and sources from.
Yeah, is this we had heard? Who's we? And also he also said in a subsequent tweet, that's what the reports, the report has been corrected. It's not the report, it's your report. You reported something as an absolute, and then everybody dragged you through the mud rightly because you didn't ask anybody, you just assumed. Or he heard from somebody who's got no idea what they're talking about and just took it as read. This whole one source must be true, let's go with it kind of nonsense. And once again, other people, including people from the Wrestling Observer, also reached out, like Andrew Zarian did, and said, yeah, I can piggyback on this. I got the same response from Warner Brothers. But then Meltzer then said, quote, "We had heard over the weekend," who's we? And heard from who, doesn't say, that there were concerns about how much publicity the situation had gotten from the WBD side, but those at AEW said that they were not told to not put him on the show. So just totally contradicting himself there. But this is interesting. Is this going to affect Brody King's career, you think?
What is Brody King's character right now, besides this, what obviously is organically kind of been attached to him? What was it supposed to be? And now he's fighting for the world title against MJF. He's in probably the most high profile storyline in the company. So you'd have to think now it's a game. I mean, if it's a game of chicken right now, the government doesn't have to approve the sale. So there's things going on much bigger than Brody King versus MJF.
I think part of the concern, if there is concern, is that this is now getting publicity and now getting weaponized as a political debate, and now trying to have it framed between AEW and WWE, which I don't think that many people even thought about. As far as, well, WWE is for people on the right side of the spectrum, AEW's for the left. No one thought that. I'm pretty sure.
No, wrestling's not supposed to be that. Obviously, it's tribalistic enough as it is right now and divisive. I know it's a shock to say that. It's divisive as it is right now. It doesn't need any help. And this is obviously going to provide a little bit more help to people that might look at that, not tune in. Maybe some people will tune in, but I'm just saying he's wearing the shirt, which is pretty obviously getting a reaction, but the commentary and everything around what he's doing is being ignored. It's almost like a disconnect on both sides. But the only people paying attention to it are the people that, quite frankly, could hurt AEW in a lot of ways. Whether it be, the WBD saying it's not worth having AEW on here. They're trying to close the Netflix deal, and Netflix has WWE. There's a lot of fluid stuff here, not to mention just people that might not want to go to show or watch the show based off of that. Not saying right, wrong, or indifferent about it. I'm just saying this is just the way it looks. You don't ever want to alienate anybody, no matter what your opinion is. Wrestling's the escape from all this. And it feels like they leaned in a little bit, but now they're trying to, don't look at the shirt, don't do this. Now they're not on the show. That breaks up the storyline with Brody fighting MJF, right? You need that to kind of anchor the show.
It's interesting because, I mean, maybe it could be true, but then because Meltzer's obviously gone completely back on what he said, and then even admitted that he over-reported, didn't apologize for it, of course, admitted that basically he'd over-reported.
That's a new term, over-reported?
That's actually what he said, or I think it was, yeah. Anyway.
All right, just I'll remember that when I over-annotate the smartboard.
Just put too much writing on it. So, but it's interesting that, yeah, Warner Brothers Discovery could not be happy for two reasons. One, because you've got people saying the F word on live television, and it's kind of hard to bleep that out entirely, especially when it's a smaller venue and everyone's chanting it. What, do you just mute it? You think you've gone deaf?
Well, I heard that somebody from the WWE team actually edited over ECW chants over that for 5 minutes.
You should do for 5 minutes flat.
Yeah.
And took out Joey Styles' commentary as well. If you're watching the clip,
there, you're like, why am I? They think I'm watching the Big Show Batista match.
Yeah, if you're watching the clip, you need to watch the full episode to get the reference. Anyway, that being said, Warner Brothers Discovery, I can't imagine is too happy, but I guess Tony Khan, I don't know whether he agrees or not with that kind of sentiment, but regardless of that, anytime we mention politics on any of our shows, we get comment after comment. It's like, listen, we watch this to get away from politics. And I think both AEW and WWE are very cognizant of that. AEW have had their things with Brody, CM Punk, for example. Triple H is on the sports and nutrition and whatever it is group, where he's not the most well-suited, but he's, a fairly famous face for it, I guess. But they keep that off the TV shows as best they can, because why alienate half your crowd? Your audience.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that. I mean, the views, and you can say one side of it is very, how should I say, unempathetic and unsympathetic to the human condition, and the others are just trying to defend human beings. But we're watching wrestling. We're supposed to escape. These two guys hate each other. One's good, one's bad. We want to see them fight, and who can win? We got to keep it very simple with this. And this is a distraction for AEW with everything, not just the WBD and the potential sale of Netflix and where they're going to go, but also just really just shore up your creative stuff where you're putting people who you have and long-term booking. Like, take it back to that and see. And Brody, I mean, Brody King's been through the roller coaster ride and everything like that. And now he's finally getting to stand out as a single star on the main show and fighting the world champion. So it's kind of, something that's kind of disappointing to get to that point. Now it's everything but your rise into main event status.
Do you think he's going to be, because he's announced for next Dynamite, not the one that's going to be out, I guess, yesterday, as this show's being broadcast, because we're recording this on a Tuesday, but he's going to be on next week. So he's already been announced, so he's definitely not being taken off TV. I don't know if this is almost like in spite, like you said before, like we can't show, our poker hand here. We have to now keep having him on TV after it's been now announced by Meltzer that he's being kept off TV. I don't know if it's a response to that. I don't know what it's a response to, but do you think long-term Brody King is going to be taken off TV until they hope that the chants die down again?
That would be a shame for him as a talent. Like I said, he's just been through all this stuff, and now he's finally figured into a spot where he's carrying the ball, and this whole thing is a distraction from that. I don't know the answer. The only answer would have been to actually not wear the shirt in the first place and just, have people really get behind you to be a main event star in AEW. Too late for that. I don't know. I don't have the answer for anything with this because it was just something, say, that was isolated to the AEW product or even just television and didn't have the network and this potential sale that needed to be approved by the government with WBD and Netflix, then, you could easily just have it in a vacuum, but there's so many outside things in play. I mean, we talked about a minefield earlier. This is a minefield I don't think you can navigate without a few of them blowing up.
CNN, obviously, we won't go into it. They've been trying to frame it as a WWE versus AEW thing, politically speaking, rather than just tastes, if nothing else. The same CNN article also revealed that WBD owns a small stake in AEW, probably about less than 10%, so I think they don't have to declare it publicly. I think that's how it works. But this is the first official confirmation. Just before we get off this, I want to ask you one more question. Politics and wrestling and storylines in wrestling have gone hand in glove for so many years, like Sergeant Slaughter and the Gulf War, all the way to Zeb Coulter and the Tea Party. They're two of the more obvious examples I can use. And I'm not mentioning that just because of Dutch, because I'm friends with Dutch, of course, but they're two really obvious examples of how real world politics has shaped wrestling storylines. Well, I don't know how much the Slaughter one put people off watching. I know you loved it as a kid, or a young adult, as I should say. But are people these days, could they just not tolerate it at all now? It's can you just not do politics in wrestling or pastiches or playoffs of real-world events anymore?
Yeah, it feels like it's completely shifted. I would say it's a little bit more acceptable and not such a shutdown thing as it was say 2 to 3 years ago. That's where you'd be he'd literally be, the AEW might have been taken off the air. We had such a knee-jerk reaction to anybody that thought anything different. I want to put this, just while I'm thinking about it, because I don't want the gravity of what Brody may be doing with this shirt and wearing it, that could be far beyond a wrestling angle. I don't know Brody's personal life. I don't know what his motivation is. There could be something very deep down inside him that wanted to do this because he had a personal experience, a family member, somebody he loves or cares about. So let's not say he just wore the shirt to get attention. There could be a very, very reasonable reason in his mind of why he did it that's much more important than pro wrestling. But we are talking about a pro wrestling show. I even go further back. Remember Fritz von Erich? During that whole time, that's a push button thing. The Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Nikita Koloff, Ivan Koloff, singles wrestler in the 70s. Then with Nikita and Crusher Khrushchev, Barry Darsow, friend of the show, if I can pronounce his name correctly, Darsow. Oh, good Lord. So I look at that. Then you got the smaller ones like Ludwig Barga, anti-American Finnish guy, You
Should
know
have
what I
been
mean?
a baby face. He wanted to clean up the place. Well, he could have done like a litter picking campaign.
We could have had a different America today if it wasn't, yeah. But I was always joking, like, when's Finland going to invade America? When are they the big threat? But yeah, this has been something. It has been a staple of wrestling throughout many, many eras. But I think we're far past that. I don't think we can ever go back to that. Because if we could, guess who would have been really good for that? Rusev. You would have had many people. You touched on it a little bit, but you had like the Ivan Drago and his wife. But he was essentially, it was Russia versus the U.S. But this is a little bit different because this is Civil War type stuff, with America.
I nearly put Rusev in the news because he was on Raw just in like a little backstage segment. Like he faced off with Obafemi. Dead silence. Like how they've killed off Rusev, like since he's come back, because they've just given him no character. It's insane how much they.
Oh, you would have thought he was wrestling
Rusev
at the Hammerstein Ballroom in that backstage segment.
It's madness, and it's like if he had Lana with him and they still did the Russian thing or just anything nationalistic, I guess, with him because he was really good at it the first time. Nope, no happy Rusev Day, no nothing. So. We're going to move on to.
I'm going to ask you, where do you, how this is it's almost an impossible situation at this point.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, what if you just take him off TV for 4 months? What if you take him off TV for 4 months, then bring him back and they chant it again? Then what do you do? And then also, once again, and this does come into play into politics. What if he wants to leave AEW because he's not getting any TV time? Is WWE going to want him? Very likely not. Because aside from the fact that several key players in WWE are part of, the Trump administration or I guess big supporters of him, including people in TKO, well, they're not going to want F Ice chants on their TV show for a multitude of reasons as well. So I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that could spell the end of him being on TV as a regular character in any major promotion, at least in the States.
Yeah, that's my fear too, because this situation that we're talking about, and obviously we don't want to talk about politics or anything, but we are talking about the gravity of them in this professional wrestling situation. This is not going away anytime soon. That's what I mean. If this was just a passing headline and unfortunate stuff has happened, obviously, but if it was like, oh, here's the next hot button topic for all of news to cover, I don't think this is going anywhere anytime soon. And that means the controversy and whether or not to put Brody King on TV, much less put him over MJF for the world title. Let's not forget about that. He went to that part, and then you just basically are going to, the only thing you can do to be safe, I guess, like you said, is shut it completely down and take him off TV. But then poor Brody King, then what's he going to do? It's going to carry him around for the rest of whatever, at least until 2028, when this is not going to go away until maybe the next election.
We're going to move on. We have to go to ticket
Thank
woes
God.
from both WWE and AEW. I know, yeah, I've got to dance around it, haven't you? So WWE WrestleMania ticket price discounts. Now, this is going to be, I guess, the first discount of, I suppose, several. And it's 2 months out. I guess WWE's gotten so scared about underperforming ticket sales compared to last year's WrestleMania that they've offered a temporary discount, which is now over. The interesting thing is that the discount was broadcast by the Allegiant Stadium official Twitter. And when I checked it, when the discount was still active, they'd already deleted the tweet. And I don't know why. I'm wondering if, they sold enough. And they thought, well, we've sold enough now, so let's take it down. I think someone wrote to me and said that the code that I'd given out no longer worked as well. So that's also interesting. Maybe they got cold feet on the discount.
It was winter, right?
Winter, exactly, it was. And there's been some interesting movements within WWE and TKOs of recent in reaction to this. There apparently was so much panic about it that they actually had a multi-department meeting in WWE, February 10th or 11th or something, to essentially try and figure out how to sell more tickets. And here's a couple of ideas. One, why don't you book some matches for the damn show so we know what we're getting into? And two, why don't you book it somewhere else in Las Vegas where people have already been? and it's really expensive. But they can't not do that, but they can certainly make the shows more fascinating.
Well, all the TKO executives that live in Vegas didn't want to hop on a plane, so that's probably the number one reason why they're doing it there again. Here's my thought. Now, this is just somebody who has like kind of like that Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Cyber Month mentality that now with people shopping in general, don't people, the Black Friday sales start in October, but then people, us included, when we're looking for write-offs for production equipment and everything, we kind of wait until to see when the biggest sale is going to be, almost when it's at the end of Black Friday month or Cyber Monday or last chance on Amazon. The reason why I bring this analogy up is they've already played a little bit of their hand that they're desperate to get, that sales are down, they're offering a special or a sale or a discount. Would a potential person say, if I wait to even closer to WrestleMania, they may get even more desperate. I'll get a bigger discount, which this right here being leaked, maybe they realize that, oh my God, people are just going to now not want to buy because they're going to wait for the next flash sale to happen to the tickets. Is that a real possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people will, but it's not being leaked. I mean, they purposely sent this press release, not press release, but Allegiant Stadium was the one who broadcast this, not, it wasn't like Fightful or something, you know what I mean? Where it's like sneak it out to one wrestling website.
Yeah, but who's in Allegiant Stadium staff or somebody in charge of the ticket sales that looks at the number, talks to the people on social media and says, put this out, and did not communicate it to WWE TKO or didn't get the approval for the press release and that discount code beforehand? Do you see what I mean? Was there a miscommunication that they were thinking about it and Allegiant just went, oh, here you go?
I don't think so, because the stadium doesn't set the ticket prices. That's the event organizer.
Why would the stadium release that then? That's weird.
That's weird as well. Maybe they wanted to like have a low-key release instead of WWE themselves, but every wrestling website
well, you failed at that.
Well, they did do it. And then they deleted it like at least a day early, which is so weird as well. But okay, I want to ask you this. Once again, you can't change certain things. We're going to talk about Vegas as well and having it there a second year, why that's a problem for several reasons. But we both watched the Royal Rumble, and it was, I think for a men's Royal Rumble, it was kind of in the top half of them. I think it was a good, well-paced match. Not the biggest amount of stars in the world. Bron Breakker goes out first. People were figuring he was going to win it. We don't know if he was injured going into the match and they eliminated him first thing to get him out or whatever. Anyway, there's only two people who are going to win it, Bron Breakker and Roman Reigns. And it took me about a week for me to realize after Roman Reigns had won, I was like, oh, it's Roman Reigns again. Oh, it's the exact same people in the main event again. Oh, CM Punk and Roman Reigns. I don't think they've done a big singles match. They've not done a big singles match since Punk returned anyway. But these dudes have got a combined age of 87, and this is like the safest main event that WWE could humanly come up with.
Yeah, it's tough because we talked about it, especially after the Cena match and after the AJ match, especially, that the pipeline of new wrestlers, and we saw a little bit of that at the Rumble with Obafemi and other people. Javon Evans is getting pushed now. The Cena, the last match, Saturday night's main event, they showcased some of the NXT people. But you got to do more to have a pipeline of people to get excited about and mix in the good, safe wrestlers with a combined age of almost 90 to get these people in there. And, for example, somebody like Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is just like the guy who comes in, you play the music, you say his name before that. He comes in, does the match, he goes away for a little while, stays in NXT. But he's a guy that's a big dude that really carried his weight last year at WrestleMania in the match with Orton and do something with the guy beyond just say his name and it'll appear, There's more to Joe Hendry with that. But you have a lot of people, but right now, dude, it looks like WrestleMania 42 is going to be like the end of like playing that safe card over and over and over again. What do you do?
It's a redo. Like WrestleMania 41.
What do you do after that? That's what I mean. They're not working now to have people figured in for what's after WrestleMania. And what are you looking at WrestleMania 43 in Saudi? We bring it up all the time. Dude, I think that's going to be a huge, if not this year. Somebody in one of our comments said they're gonna go to the nostalgia round if they get desperate. The Takers, the Goldbergs, the Bretts, the Austins, they're gonna do whatever they can to get this going. Remember which WrestleMania was it? I know it was Dallas, where the Kevin Owens Steve Austin match had like literally what, a 2-week buildup, maybe 3. Was it 38?
It was 38, yeah. But I'll tell you what, I think it's just because so few people knew if Austin was going to be there or not. And probably Austin didn't know if he was going to do it or not. And then he turned up, he was great.
It was an awesome match.
Yeah.
Definitely something I'm jealous of Kevin Owens for.
When you were watching it, did you think it was basically going to be a segment match? Like a fake match where like no bell rang and like a bit of a brawl and a stunner and see you later, Jimmy?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised that, oh my God, that was a high-level match. It was a brawl, it was a fight, they went all around, but my goodness, and now this year, I mean, the only match I can see Austin's doing is him against the ATV Karen that was in the front row.
The Rock will turn back up, I'm sure. That'll be his retirement match. Okay, but let's talk about this.
You're talking about The Rock turning up for 43, not 42.
43, yeah, he will be in Saudi, I'll guarantee you that. I won't guarantee you, but I'm pretty sure he will be. But 42, what have you got to be excited over? There's no Cody Rhodes story. That's long since done. Cena's gone. You've basically got, apart from maybe a couple of names, you don't even have Bron Breakker. Apart from a couple of names like maybe Obafemi and maybe Javon Evans might appear, you've pretty much got the exact same cast that you had last year, in the exact same arena that you probably went to last year, if you went, for more money, and that it costs more to fly there, and it costs more to stay there, and it costs more to feed and water yourself there, because Vegas is also intent on killing off its own tourism by jacking up the prices. There's a theory going out there that they're trying to price out anybody but high rollers, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world, Vegas.
Well, it's the same thing that they're trying to do in the stands, not only in wrestling, but football and everybody else. We want rich people. We want personal seat licenses.
The Sphere. Like, nobody can even afford to run that place because it's a money loser.
$1 to $2 million just to rent it out. Yeah. UFC did one. I thought WWE would do one episode of Raw and SmackDown there, but it's ridiculous. And the amount of time and there was a special about that. How much money it costs just at the electric bill per month is just insane. That's the ultimate, it'd be cool, right? That Sphere. And it's kind of cool, but that's about it. And they raised the parking, they raised the ticket prices there, which were already expensive. And now we have this. It's really, there's an everything bubble that's about to burst in the world. And this is definitely one that we might be seeing the beginning of the bursting of the bubble. Like you said, Elimination Chamber. Those tickets are expensive, and those tickets aren't selling well either.
Well, I think there's like another 2,500 available, but like last year, they sold nearly 35,000 in Toronto, in the Rogers Centre, I think. This year, I don't know where it is, I can't remember, but they've sold less than 15,000. So it's a smaller arena, I get that, but there's just nothing. I think there's nothing to get excited over, because it's not like an idea of, I can't wait to see who wins this to be the number one contender. Because you kind of guess it's going to be like Cody or whoever. It's going to be fairly obvious who's going to win. It's not going to be Javon Evans, who, has got a space, won a space last night as we record this. But I don't see any of the main events combinations being that intriguing. Because once again, it's the same people as 2 years ago. And there's just no rotation of the main cast here. And once again, like the one person who could have been like inject some new life is Bron Breakker, who may or may not be there now.
And Seth Rollins is hurt, so we don't know what his timetable is to come back either.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that, though. Just a theory I have. Yeah. Like, once again, pure speculation. Do you think, because corporate America does this a lot, they know that like they peaked and they're starting to get in that jump the shark type of phase of the company, the profits, all that stuff. Do you think that seeing what's happening, that they may accelerate this potential sale to Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. I'm not fully on board that they're going to sell it in the next few years. I just simply wouldn't be surprised. But maybe they will. Here's the thing.
But as much as they raised all this and they plan on raising it more, as Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro actually said, this isn't the end. We're not at the peak of the ticket prices.
Oh, they are. They are definitely, because this WrestleMania is kind of, I think these last few events, even the Saudi Arabia show was ridiculous because they priced that very competitively, comparatively so. And they couldn't get 25,000 in that arena for a Royal Rumble. Apparently not even at gunpoint. I don't think it's quite North Korea, obviously, but I want to mention a couple of things before I forget. One, the Sphere, the first operating year, they posted nearly $500 million in losses. And keep in mind, it's the most expensive venue to rent in the world for this kind of thing. WrestleMania 41 drew $66 million in total. That number's only just come out the last day or two. So, but then when you add this, they had to pay off New Orleans, their local council or whatever, because they agreed a site fee and had to get out of the contract. Then they're obviously getting a site fee from Las Vegas. I don't know if they're making any money off that after all. I'm sure the legal fees and penalties they had to pay to get out of the contract for New Orleans. But now they're not... but then they try and up the ticket prices. Now they're having to reduce the ticket prices. Then they'll up it again. And then I'm sure they're going to run a couple more. Do you think they're going to even make the same amount when it's all said and told after all these fines they're paying for New Orleans and discounted tickets?
Well, that's why they want to block out every other independent promotion and every other convention and everything, because they want all the money. That's my money, as Vince once said to Jesse Ventura about the royalties. I feel like that's what they're doing. Instead of trying to put on the best show that they can do, try to get the most amount of people in there, and also try to be profitable, they're trying to just cast a wide net and block everybody out and have a block, even in the bars. You can't have it. Play the WrestleMania, you got to go to the show or you got to subscribe to ESPN at home. Right? So, and we have people actually emailing and messaging us because we're still confused because certain things are not included in their subscription. It's still being hashed out that ESPN promised certain pay-per-views, but they weren't included with other subscriptions.
There was a lawsuit out because I think in the initial that WWE or TKO or ESPN, I think probably ESPN had promised that if you already got ESPN as part of a cable package, then you would get access to ESPN Plus, and apparently that wasn't the case. And certain people did, certain companies, cable stations did, certain cable providers didn't. And then there's now a lawsuit over it because of misrepresentation, I guess. That probably won't go anywhere, but they did promise certain things that didn't come to fruition in that sense. I want to give you this. I've got a few different things about WrestleMania and like all these problems, and they still sold a lot of tickets. It's just not in line with last year's performance. But how big of a deal is it running the same city twice in a row? They did it for 4 and 5, but on 5 they had Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. That was a huge deal, and also it was a lot cheaper, adjusting for inflation, and it was one night. Now this one, they've got nothing really to sell WrestleMania over, nothing major to get you excited over. But then this is once again a tourist town, especially for Canadians, Europeans, everybody who flies over. Well, if they flew over last year, why do you want to go Vegas again? 12 months apart. You want to go somewhere different.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say this too, a big deal, and more recently than 4 and 5. 4 and 5 worked at Trump Plaza because it continued a story with a complete 180. Hogan helped Savage in that tournament in 4. Then the mega powers collided. We had a year of story between 4 and 5. We also had a year of story between 39 and 40. Different towns, which helps. But we also had 2 years of Cody's story going into 39, then going into 40. And all the chaos, obviously, that was unpredictable. I wish they could bottle that up again and kind of run with it. That's what's missing right now. It's very predictable. It's very flat. It's very just vanilla. It's literally like, it feels like, let's just get through this WrestleMania. That's what it feels like. And unfortunately, the guys and the girls work every bit as hard, whether they're working 2 years in a row in Vegas, Philadelphia, wherever they're doing it. And they're the ones that are ultimately going to suffer because they are going to perform and really just work their butts off. But it's creative and also the management in general that are doing a disservice to the talent that want to have WrestleMania moments to provide for each and every person out there.
Do you think it made any difference to people, the sort of flat ending to WrestleMania last year? Is that the kind of thing with Travis Scott? Is that the kind of thing that will actually put people off genuinely? Or do you think enough time will have gone past that think, oh, we'll give this next WrestleMania a chance?
Well, Travis Scott coming back could save the pay-per-view. That's my sarcastic prediction. I just think about Travis Scott. He might come back. Who knows?
It's good for our YouTube views.
But I did, yeah. Please come back, Travis Scott, and please Triple H, put yourself on the cover or something. Please, we need you. So, anyway, with that being said, I would say no. Normally, if there were different buildings or different areas where WrestleMania would be, you're going back to the same exact building in the same exact town. People could remember just based off of that. Is it going to be the same set? There's another question. They're going to have a brand new set built, or are you going to recycle the same set 2 years in a row? That could talk about the number one thing that I feel like they're suffering from right now, and that's effort, not putting the effort into creating. It feels like they're just coasting on it right now.
I think basically this is exposed like short-sightedness on TKO's part, because I think basically Nick Khan and other people, they all live in Vegas and they just want the convenience and to get people to fly in and have a jolly for a week straight that happens to also have a WrestleMania card at the Allegiant Stadium that they have to go with. But once again with the economic downturn of Vegas as well, overrunning the same town, and probably in 2 years they've lost like 15% of their tourism.
Yeah, we had somebody reach out to me via email saying, no, it's still a ton of people and everything. Me and my wife, my wife and I don't want to get my grammar wrong when I'm associating myself with her, but we watch some of the live cams because there's one that goes all around the country. We just leave it on sometimes. Every time they put on Vegas, whether it's morning, noon, or night, it's pretty empty and they're panning. It doesn't look like it's super crowded. So we just go off of what we know. I would say this too. I think TKO, and this is based off that video, which surprisingly did well with why wrestlers fail on YouTube, like when they start channels and stuff. I feel like TKO and WWE feel like if it's just WWE, people are going to show up. We're over. We're super over, brother. No matter what we put out there, people will come. I feel like that's the attitude. Do you get that impression?
Yeah, because there's nothing to sell apart from the brand of WrestleMania at this point. Is CM Punk and Roman Reigns actually confirmed?
Well, it's confirmed unless Elimination Chamber changes something.
Right.
Remember, we still have a little detour with the pay-per-view going into WrestleMania. We don't know what stipulations are going to, that's what you just said. They're talking like the match is going to happen, and you and I are here both saying separately and together, well, wait a minute, have they even announced the match? Roman Reigns chose Punk, but have they advertised it for WrestleMania? I haven't seen that yet.
No, I don't remember seeing any, like those card
official
things,
graphics or banners or anything, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I missed it because, like with Raw, I do skip through stuff, like the adverts. Anyway, we're going to move on because, once again, ticket woes don't just stop at WWE. AEW ends up having to give away tickets for free to their Brisbane show a couple of days ago as we record this. So, AEW Grand Slam in Sydney did 7,000, almost half of Brisbane Grand Slam the year before, despite Sydney having twice the population. AEW, they did a bad job promoting Grand Slam last year in Brisbane. Like, they originally booked a stadium out, as I'm sure you'll remember, and then they found out that not advertising something makes people not know it's there. So, and also every major city in Australia is like a 3-hour flight away from the other one. So wow. It's not like you can just pop over to the next town, everything's quite remote in that sense. But yeah, so originally a year ago, People who bought like stadium floor seats ended up getting reallocated to the Brisbane, I think it's the entertainment centre there, and they ended up getting like tiered seats, worse seats than what they paid for. So there was a lot of unhappiness with that. They didn't do a very good job until the last couple of weeks of even promoting it. There were like no banners in the area, or loads of people didn't even know the show was happening. This was last year. They still got 13,000 people in. Then we skip ahead a year. Brisbane, Sydney, they get 7,000 in. Probably a better card as well, top to bottom. Tons of stars once again. Carl Fletcher with Mark Briscoe in a ladder match. There was MJF and Brody King, etc. for the world title. So it was a big deal. A big old stat card for what is basically a collision show. And that was bad enough. Very little advertising, effective especially. But then the next day they had a house show in Brisbane once again. The same building, Brisbane Entertainment Centre, I think that's what it was. And in the same building they did 13,000 last year. This time they couldn't have done more than 2,000. They just didn't advertise it at all. They were getting to the point where they were giving away tickets for free 24 hours beforehand, and then they didn't advertise that. They couldn't even fill the lower part of the first tier, and 2 weeks out, 70% of the floor seats were still available. Why bother?
Wow. Did Tony Khan plan a vacation to Australia or something? And is there something else he has going on? Because
well, there's no TV. There's no TV, AEW TV in Australia. That went a couple of months ago.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a big deal then. How can you advertise or do anything like that? This reminds me, when you were talking about all this, it reminded me when I was in TNA and we had very limited house shows, and we would go into the gym and it'd be AJ, Frankie, myself, Chris Daniels, and it'd be like, oh, what are you guys doing here? Like, we have a show. And they're like, well, we didn't know anything about that. They didn't paper to town or do anything in Australia. They didn't have local indie people and anybody just trying to promote this thing. They didn't get on radio shows or a morning show, even live via satellite or Zoom to do any of this. They just kind of showed up.
Kind of, yeah. The only thing that I saw was on their own website. I'm sure they mentioned it a bit on TV here and there, but I don't know if it's because it was a house show and therefore it wasn't broadcast that turned people off for the people who did know. But when I did my first video on this year on it, the vast majority of people who said I'm in Australia, I had no idea.
Wow.
So why are you going to a country where you then you don't even have a ring? You've got to like rent one locally, and it might not be the right size. And I just don't understand why put all the effort in to go to Australia for two shows that you're just going to barely promote and try and make it seem like a big deal in a country where you don't even have television anymore. And when you did, only 20,000 people nationally watched every week. So why are you trying to run Australia? Was this just a reaction to WWE running like Perth or something?
I guess. I don't even know, because what you also do is you wear your talent down. You just talked about the Iconics in the notes, flew them all the way over there and really did nothing, So that's incredibly hard to take that kind of travel all the way over there, time zone differences. Maybe people already have injuries from working matches and shows before. I have no doubt every wrestler has something bothering them. But then you expect them basically, what's a full day flight, 22, 24 hours over to Australia. And then you got to do the TV and then fly to a house show that's 3 hours away. Like you said, you can't get anywhere real easy. And you're looking out there and you're like, we got about 2,000 people here. Like, what are we doing? What did I fly to Australia for? And what did I fly over to this city for to work a house show, to fly back to the States and grind it out and do another live TV and tape TVs?
Events promotion is not that hard. And that's kind of what I find so egregious about it. It's like, it's not hard to just like do some advertising on social media and just have it localized to like the city. You've already got the graphics. I don't understand why they wouldn't put the money in, because they must operate on spending $5 million a week, AEW, I'm sure. They probably spend over $200 million a year just on contracts and, running all these tapings and stuff. They don't even do house shows anymore. Why don't they have anyone who can actually promote? Because this isn't just a criticism that's been levied to them about Australia. so many people have said in the States, oh, they were 2 towns over. I didn't realize until the day of the show. And then I couldn't get a babysitter, or it was too late, I was doing something else, or allocated the money elsewhere. We hear this constantly. And promotion is not that, it's easier than it's ever been now. It really is. And I don't understand why they just don't pump a little money into it. And they'd make the money back on the ticket sales, I'm sure.
Yeah, I remember in WWE, there was a guy named Raphael. Then he was in TNA. Then I believe he went to AEW. There was also a guy, Alex, who did, he worked with the Mexican luchadors for a while as a manager, but also he was an office guy that I worked with in Lucha Libre USA. And he had experience, I think, with event promotions and appearances and all that stuff. But Raphael was one of those guys that handled a lot of those tasks with that as well. And I have no doubt they had other people. So I don't know if those people are even still there, but you're right. To me, that would be for TV, for pay-per-view, and if you want to go overseas with a combination of all those, including house shows, don't you want to pay somebody 50 or 100 grand a year and make that person just go out there in paper towns, hire a street team, get some local indie wrestlers, promise some dark matches, and have them go out there and paper towns, like you said. Or here's Facebook ads, Twitter ads, Instagram ads, Target, Brisbane, and Sydney. Am I wrong? I mean, it's not that hard to do. I think a lot of times these promoters, and I've seen it a lot, I actually talked to a couple people that are running other things, and it's just like, I just want to do the fun stuff. I just want to do the fun. Good, hire somebody to do the stuff that's not fun. It's really weird.
I'd find
very
that fun.
penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, but I'd find that fun. I think events promotion is fun. Like, you know, how well a job can you do is something I think you could actually get excited over. And I just don't know why they do it. It's like, well, they're going to try and, right, well, we're heading to Kiribati next. We're heading to Somalia. Well, they don't have TV either, but you might as well. For all the difference it makes, there must be wrestling fans. Let's just hold the show and hope for the best.
Do you just think it's to say we are a global brand?
Yeah.
We went all over the world, and that's all.
Here's a question. They're going to London again, Wembley, all in while you drop your phone. And no one saw that apart from me. They're going to London for the 3rd time in 4 years for All In, Wembley once again. Do you think it was a good thing for them to leave it a year? Because obviously there's a big drop-off between year 1 and year 2. Now, then it wasn't year 1 of All In, but I'm talking from Wembley onwards. Then the 3rd time they went to Texas, Arlington, I think, and then now they're back to London again. Now, this is where, obviously, in London, they got their biggest ever houses by far, and they want to replicate that. But is it a problem that they're doing the WrestleMania thing? They're just keeping on going back to what they think is a sure thing with Wembley.
Yeah, it's like the Triple H era, and I'm just bringing it up as an analogy, that there's so much goodwill and so much of a honeymoon period until you beat everybody over the head with going back there, and it's no longer special and new, even though skipping a year is not a bad idea, and then trying to go back there. But we can't ignore the fact that people's budgets are tighter than ever. The economy all over the world is definitely in flux, definitely unpredictable. As a matter of fact, predictably looks like on a downtrend, layoffs, people being fired, inflation, all that stuff factored into it. You have to kind of look at that. But in the wrestling world, we're in such a bubble, we don't quite look at things that way to be able to do that. I would say also maybe not running a stadium show all the time. Isn't the O2 Arena and other ones in England very big arenas that you can run?
Yeah, I don't know what the O2 Arena capacity is. I don't know if it's 20,000 or thereabouts, but yeah.
But when you want a really full small house that's loud, people are there and excited, and maybe you will fill up the stadium, but the times you keep going back to the same stadium, people will be like, well, it's no longer special unless you give them storylines that always climax with the payoffs at Wembley. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, they were actually there last year for Forbidden Door in the O2 as well. So they pretty almost sold it out. So capacity is 20,000. I think it actually was a sellout, actually, with the staging and the ring and everything. So they got nearly 19,000 through the door then. So you could do it alternate years. You can have one pay-per-view arena, which isn't All In. Then you could do All In Wembley and do it every other year. But then here's the thing, why Wembley was such a success the first year and the second year as well. It really was a success. They'd upped the ticket prices, even though they sold 50,000 something instead of 70,000 something. Is that it's the only one show of the year that they really properly advertise. I saw All-In posters on buses and around London. I really did when I went for the first one. They did a really good job of promoting that. But it's like, why don't you just do that for every show instead of once a year?
Could I just speculation once again? Isn't there European football, their soccer team also in that area?
Yeah, there's loads, but
no, I'm just saying.
But Wembley's not the home team. There's no Tottenham Hotspur did call Wembley home for a bit while they were waiting for their new stadium.
I'm talking about the country. The Con soccer team is over there in England, correct?
The English football team plays in England, but yeah, like it doesn't have to be in Wembley. It could be anywhere.
I'm not talking about the stadium. I'm talking about the infrastructure for promotion. Maybe they're doubling up the work for the people for the soccer team that are working in junction, already advertised on those buses everywhere, and just filling in the AEW pay-per-view with that. What I'm saying is they have a proper event promotion team over there, and they're maybe utilizing them for the All-In.
It's not for English football, it's for American football, because they also
the Jaguars.
Yeah, they seem to play every year in Wembley as well. They have like several matches, several games here every year, and Jacksonville Jaguars seem to always be. Yeah.
So my theory goes to the NFL team, but what I'm saying is it's an easy kind of, we promoted on the same buses, the same billboards, the same everywhere. Now we have that inline. Let's talk to the same person and do that. So their event promotion for the games, for the soccer matches, translate this, like I'm saying, just speculation, because in America, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars event promotion there and all the people in PR. Why can't you still do the same thing over here with that? Of course, Australia is an outlier literally because you have nothing there. No TV, no office for another team, nothing like that. That's the only point I'm trying to make. It's kind of an easy substitution.
Yeah, but once again, you could just, I don't know, do some advertising locally. Like radio station interviews and stuff, it might be a bit passe, but you'll reach people that you otherwise wouldn't with it. But like there's loads of people with, I don't know, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and everything that you can advertise on for relatively cheap and weeks in advance, maybe. That's a one-person job.
If Tony Khan does any more interviews, it might not boost ticket sales.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying Tony Khan. I'm saying because he only does, for the most part, podcasts with under 1,000 listeners for whatever reason. I don't know why he does it. Okay, then we're going to end with this, and this was advertised, and maybe it should be something that not only was not advertised but never should have been booked in the first place. John Laurinaitis, who I hear that you do a good impression of occasionally, he's returning to the public eye at the behest of a convention that has booked him, essentially. So, amusing enough as the timing was, around the same time that Janelle Grant had announced that she was making her first public appearance doing a talk on abuse of non-disclosure agreements, and then like the next day, it was pretty much announced that John Laurinaitis is going to be at a convention crawling out of the mound of divorce papers and legal papers that I'm sure he's been hidden under the last few years. He's going to be doing a signing, or as I wrote here, a singing. So, first public appearance in I know. First one in several years. He's still, he was named as a defendant in the Janelle Grant trafficking lawsuit. He was fired from WWE prior to this all NDA ugliness because of other NDAs and other accusations from various women across the years, across the decades in WWE. Why? Oh, here's the quote. I, Mr. John Laurinaitis.
No. Here's the quote. I will do it as Johnny Ace. This is for our social media, Chris. I'm sure this will turn into a short. This is strictly a parody, everybody. I do not associate with John Laurinaitis. All right, you ready? I, Mr. John Laurinaitis, former Executive Vice President of Talent Relations and former GM of both Raw and SmackDown, will be there to do his first ever signing. I suggest everybody watching be there. Otherwise, I may have to wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Although, Steve, you have a job for life. Don't worry. You're always welcome to come back. People power. Was that close?
Yeah, remarkably so. I'm
ashamed of myself now.
You know, someone's gonna put both of those together, man. Bobby Fulton is running this deal. Tried to book Laurinaitis before in 2023. This is before the Janelle Grant thing came out, and then enough negativity happened that Bobby cancelled the appearance a day afterwards. Quote saying, yesterday we announced John Laurinaitis will be doing an appearance. Upon announcement, we received only negative feedback. After much consideration, we have decided not to work with him. We apologize for those who offended. Now, 3 years later, with more accusations, including the most serious ones, they've booked him, and this time they're not pulling him. Your thoughts of the whole thing?
I mean, this whack-a-mole game of Johnny trying to pop his head up every so often to see if everything's good, when obviously it just keeps going in waves. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even know when the next thing's going to drop with Vince, civilly or criminally, with any of this stuff. But Johnny seems to be the one that's basically in the middle of all this, no matter what. You got your Brock element. Obviously, Vince is the main thing with this, with Janelle Grant. But then you have Johnny, and then, I don't know, when I worked with Johnny, we were fine as far as lots of people didn't like working with him. We were completely fine, but I wasn't around him in a personal sense at all. Just a bit, and even then sometimes it would just be like, you're pulling my leg, you're gaslighting me, you're lying to me. And that's the thing with Johnny. I think Vince liked Johnny initially because he's very clean, he's very well-spoken. He had that charming, and I'm not comparing them personality-wise, as far as any kind of track record, but Jeff Jarrett's an extremely charming individual. He can work people and get people in a business sense to work with him. Johnny sort of can charm people back then when he was first with the company. And obviously he was being groomed, bad choice of words, groomed to be in JR's spot when JR was the head of talent relations. Outside of any of that, dude, I had no idea any of this stuff was going on. But there's that case to be made, and you said this on the pre-show. There's a case that people can be like, well, what's he supposed to do? He's got to work. And you countered with an excellent point that there's tons of jobs out there that don't require this public-facing aspect to them. And also, like, you didn't need to be a part of all this from the very beginning.
There's certain pariahs in wrestling, and like Joey Ryan, Marty Scurll. It's Marty Scurll still gets booked here and there, I think, anyway. But why can't people like Johnny Laurinaitis, for example, just accept that they will never be welcome back? Or weirdly, Vince McMahon probably will be by certain people, but John Laurinaitis, I don't think ever will be. But why can't they accept that, like, wrestling has turned their back on you by and large? Get over it, do something else.
Well, this is a strange kind of guess on my part, but do you think it's because Vince provided so much for people? They look at the entertainment aspect and what he gave them, the nostalgia, the memories and everything, and they can think it's a little bit more forgivable if he comes back, where Johnny was one of the most grating. He was almost channel-changing heat when he was on TV. If he was so beloved in a way where people were pining no matter what to see Johnny Ace or John Laurinaitis back on their TV, do you think that's the difference? Like you just mentioned Vince. Do you think that's what makes Vince be somebody like, there's people that literally say, I miss Vince during the Triple H era. That can't be because Vince is such an awesome dude and treats people with respect.
Yeah, it's because Vince has given something back to the fans, or a lot of fans.
Your value as a criminal is forgiven based on your fake push in wrestling.
Yes, it's the same in the music industry as well. How many hits did you have? If you didn't have many hits, or those songs didn't hold up over time, boy howdy, you're going to get, ignored for the rest of your life, if not arrested. But if you were a big star and committed some terrible crimes, allegedly, then you might find yourself still being played on the radio, by crikey.
So why would Johnny even be tempted to do this? Johnny's not a stupid guy, but this is pretty stupid to think, well, and you just said Janelle Grant popped up not too long ago doing something, so people are now refreshed by this. Also, with the stuff in the news right now and everything being a really, really main hot button topic with a certain island, with certain people, stuff like that, this is kind of a little bit too close to the mark of that and reminds people of all that stuff. So for him to do this and for Bobby to book him in a hypersensitive era right now in the world, I don't think is a really smart thing.
Yeah, I get.
Is this Bobby or his son? You talked about his son on the pre-show.
I don't know if it's him or his son. It's one or the other. I don't think we did talk about it in the pre-show.
Or we talked about him just in between.
Yeah, we did talk about it. But I don't know if it's Bobby or his son. It's one or the other, but I guess it's Bobby's name on the thing. But, once again, I guess the whole controversy creates cash kind of thing. But in this case, no, it doesn't. Surely not. And then I looked at the Facebook post, and it's all positive comments. So it's quite obvious they just deleted every negative one.
I don't know. There's a lot of tough stuff going on right now where things are this is very tone deaf for Johnny to say, yeah, this seems like a good time ever to really come out and let people know, I'm going to be here.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, like no one's ever, like as a wrestler, unless you're like a major All Japan fan, I guess, no one's got nostalgia for Johnny Ace. So,
well, I don't even think people remember him as a Japanese wrestler at this point. I think this is going to be the legacy that Johnny leaves. And he's never, I think, he was on Vince's side, then he turned on Vince, then he went back to Vince. This, people don't forget that.
I swear, if you could drag up and reanimate Chris Benoit, more people would want his autograph like a percentage of fans than John Laurinaitis.
That's a tough one.
A child killer, and more people would want his autograph.
I don't think anybody would want either. I know your analogy. I know that you're putting the gravity.
Oh, dude, you need some nut jobs out there. I swear down wood. I promise you. There are still people arguing that Chris Benoit should be in the Hall of Fame. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter what he did in pro wrestling. He is a double murderer.
But let me interrupt you right there. We just made the point. The attachment to what they did in a fake subjective sport, the performance in the ring, and also it's anything. Throw a ball into a hoop, throw a football, kick a field goal, do whatever. It translates. Like you just said, they were willing to overlook that because I liked the way he put people in the crossface and made them tap. Johnny Ace, this is the thing too. There's a certain demographic of people, just as a lark, just for the novelty, be like, I'm just going to take my picture with Johnny Ace because nobody wants it.
Do you think someone's just going to go up and punch him? Because he's clearly begging for it.
Do I think so? I don't know. I think some people will read him the riot act right to his face. More than one. I think it's like you might as well put him in a dunk tank at the convention.
Yeah, they need to unbook Doink, but say, can you leave the makeup and the outfit?
But am I wrong if you got to stand in line and tell Johnny Ace is a piece of crap or throw it and dunk him in acid or whatever, people would show up for that.
Oh, an acid, yeah, definitely.
I mean, you can only get one shot. I mean, it's got to be one ticket. That's about it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just like bones. And just people still throwing balls to dunk him, yeah.
What kind of... Maybe if he tanned a lot, maybe he has tougher skin.
Hydrofluoric acid, if it helps for you. Battery acid. Let's just get a load of Duracell batteries and chop in half and put them in a tank.
Good Lord, you're giving people way too many ideas here.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot of logistics. People won't do it. All right, then. We're going to leave it there. I did write something else on the script, but I think we're going to leave that for a future episode. Take a drink.
Take it
We haven't said that today.
Maybe Johnny, if AEW booked the convention, he just didn't promote it. He would have slid by it.
Yeah. Sure, live in Australia.
He might have to go to Australia. He might have to go there.
He may have to. Right, we'll leave it there, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with maybe a Ric Flair episode, the one where we're actually going to be nice about him. That's been something that's been battered about back and forth. I also thought that we've never talked about your match with Ric Flair and the backstage interview as well, so we need to talk about like that whole thing. And we've got loads to talk
that
about
was
Ric Flair.
that was a full day. That's a good story. Yeah, I definitely talk about that.
You've never told it on the show, so
I have not.
That'll be something to look forward to next week, if indeed that is going to be the topic, because we try not to make promises on topics anymore because we know just how flighty, me especially, is because I forget what we said on this show. So, I'll just do this. Anyway, we'll be back again next Thursday, because we're not Friday anymore, we're Thursday. I remembered that, if nothing else. And we've got fresh clips every single day on the YouTube channel as well. We're on all podcast platforms. Once again, thank you so much for watching. And it's over to Stevie to take us out. Thank you, all the fans, and of course the Patreon fans and supporters as well.
Yes, definitely want to thank everybody here on YouTube for watching. We keep growing. We appreciate the support, the interaction. If you could and you haven't done it yet, please subscribe. Click the bell to get notified. And also, convince James to start that Stevie Richards Show gaming channel so we can go through, play some WWE 2K26. By the way, we do have a gaming episode, Take a Drink, in the not-too-distant future, so definitely right along with it. Or maybe Ric Flair playing video games. That would be an interesting crossover right there. And go over there.
Dude,
I'd bring the PS5 Pro over and play. That would be awesome. I would actually pitch that to him for a while, a little play-along gameplay with Ric Flair. But maybe save it for hey, smartass. Also, patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Watch-alongs every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Show notes, which people are already commenting from this morning's recording, Tuesday, 9 a.m. And then, of course, the show before the show, the pre-show, every Thursday. So you have to remember, too, 9 a.m. Eastern Time here in the States. Appreciate everybody watching episode 85 of the Stevie Richards Show. Join us next week, next Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time for episode 86. Aha, aha, and aha. I'm trying to work my arms out twice a week. It's not working.